everybody?
Doing okay.
All right.
Whole lot of homeowners minute for us here,
Oh no!
but apartment livers minute is it's different because there's no thankfully there's no funds required from us, but it's still in the midst of us and we kind of have to work at their schedule too. So it's kind of interesting.
I think you'd call that mental capital.
Yes, very much a large amount of mental capital.
What broke?
What are they doing at your apartment?
So they found about a year ago. The downstairs neighbor had a leak in her bathroom ceiling, so right below the toilet. So they came in and they're like, "Hey, there's a leak and we need to fix it." Like, okay, go for it. And they fixed it, and they did kind of a crappy job. So like the floor started to bow a little bit, the wood got warped because of the water and the moisture. They didn't do a good job of like sealing it off afterwards, and it did finally eventually kind of go back down and whatnot. But then maybe a week ago, they came in and said, "Hey, there's a leak in the apartment downstairs. We need to check your toilet." I'm like, "All right, like we've done this before." Came in, checked it out, couldn't find it. Cut a hole in the wall, couldn't find it. Cut a hole in the tub, couldn't find it. Went to the neighbor near us and found it in their because it's apartments, so they're all conjoined. Found that it was like the next door neighbor, and that it ran downhill and into their bathroom, and so they ended up finding it. They started fixing it on her end, but they still had to come back and fix the drywall, the toilet, and the tub because they cut a hole in it. To the tub, they have to do a whole sealing process with this highly toxic chemical that's very, very strong. And they asked us, "Do you have any kids in the house? Any babies?" Like, no. Okay, well, you need kind of like, it'd be best if you left. And we're like, it's in the middle of COVID. There's nowhere to go. And my wife's working from home, and she's also like, it's a whole thing. So we couldn't leave per se, but we closed up the bedroom, like put towels under by the door and kind of sealed off the bedroom. But then that was a whole nother thing because we couldn't turn on the AC because then more fumes would funnel in that way. Long story short, we were out of a bathroom for about a week, in which at first they're like, "Oh, well," I'm like, "Well, what do we do when we need a bathroom?" "You can use the pool bathroom." "No, I can't." No, I can't. Also, I need to shower, and I'm not showering out in the middle of public, and also it's COVID. So, no.
Yeah.
And so they gave us the keys to another apartment which is, a certain amount, it's a fair distance away. So anytime you need to go to the bathroom, you've got to walk, across the complex. Showering at the end of the night, you're like, okay, well, I got to do that. But also, anytime we came back from doing the supply run, I'd have to decontaminate. It's like I'd bring in the stuff, everybody would spray it down with alcohol, but then I still need to go back to the other apartment to take a shower, and just add so many layers to it would have been annoying during a regular time, let alone adding the COVID aspect of it, and just a giant cluster. So yesterday they came in and fixed the toilet. No, they resealed the floor and they fixed it because there's no longer be warped. But then of course the guys who came in didn't wear. I asked if they had a drop cloth to put a runner so they could walk on that, and they're like, "Oh, we don't have those." I'm like, "Okay." I'm like, "Do you guys got booties or anything like that?" They're like, "No." I'm like, "All right." And they commenced to do work, and then of course got grease and grime across the carpet, and guys, what the F? But it's they are what they are. So we ended up calling the management and have them said, "Hey, can you come out and see this and just get someone in here to clean the carpets because this is atrocious." And they came out, checked it out. They're like, "Yeah, this is bad." And I explained, I asked if they had a runner, I asked if they had boots, because normally the maintenance guys have little booties to wear. Yeah. And so I'm like, they did that. And then, so today was hypothetically the final day of getting everything done. The carpets are cleaned and they're drying still, but yeah, this should, yeah. And yeah, that's been that.
Sorry, man.
That's okay.
Let's do it. Let's talk some Star Wars, huh?
Okay.
No?
Wait, no, wrong theme song.
Wrong. That's Apollo Creed's theme, right?
I don't even know. It's in my head, but I don't know what it's to specifically.
It's the final countdown, right?
Oh, it is the final countdown. Is it? Yeah, it is. It is the final countdown.
Oh, okay.
It's the final countdown.
Nice. What a lead in to episode 3 of Carbon Scoring.
There we go.
a sub pod of We Were Gamers with Kit
Hi, everybody.
and the singing Ken.
Hi, everybody.
I'm Andy. I am trying to get back into the Star Wars Extended Universe, and these are my two guides. And
I was thinking, like, should it be Kit, Fisto, Kurtasawa, or like, is there a nickname in there we could work? But I don't know.
Well,
Don't
Kit's
mind
already
me.
a nickname, so I don't know.
True. Fair enough.
how many nicknames does one man need?
Well, I mean, the listener might not know that, so you're a man of mystery. They don't need to know anything.
They do need
So I
to
like
know
it.
some things, like what we're going to
Yeah, that's
talk
fair.
about today.
I think they know. I think they know we're going to talk about Star Wars and how much we love it, and it's awesome. And yeah,
Yeah. I think when is it launching? When is season 2 of The Mandalorian launching? Do we know? October?
It was. I heard November last. I heard, but again, that was. I mean, I think everything's kind of up in the air at this point. I
Yeah.
think that.
Good point.
I know that they probably started filming some at some point, and I think that because of the setup of how the show is with the volume, and it's kind of like it is indoors too, as opposed to being like an outdoor set for most things.
Yeah.
That they have more control and over certain things. Like you only have like such a large cast, so you don't have to worry about that. But who knows? I mean, this is 2020. This is Thunderdome. Like I don't know what to say.
Oh boy. Okay, well, in preparation and on the recommendation of these two, I watched, I guess because you both had already watched it by the time you recommended it to me, The Mandalorian. Well, wait, The Gallery, The Mandalorian. How's that named?
Yeah, it's the gallery. Then this season is the Mandalorian, because I'm guessing maybe if they do like when we get into Kenobi and stuff like that, or when they're doing Captain America and Winter Soldier, that it could be gallery and then all those, and so they break it down so it's like it's just a behind the scenes series and a making of stuff, which I'd be cool with.
Well,
Like,
I mean, this is a digital series, right? And so you kind of don't have the box set DVD behind the scenes stuff, so they got to do that somehow if
Yeah.
they want to do it in this kind of way, which is actually kind of nice. The format was much less of a handy cam, what did we get kind of format, and instead more of a directed roundtable
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Very similar to Jon Favreau's Dinner for Five. If any listeners are familiar with that, he had on IFC, the independent film channel, he had essentially 5 people in the industry sitting around a dinner table, having dinner at a restaurant, and just talking over dinner, like whether it's memories from a film set or a time someone had out on the street with an interaction with a fan. It was very kind of like just discussion, relaxed, having fun, very much kind of podcasting before it caught on to that degree. And that was kind of the space that they were in. It was really great. If you can watch some of it on YouTube, but it's a really good just roundtable discussion. And it feels very much similar to that. And of course, it's John doing what John has done in this career before. So it's like it has that same vibe.
Nice. I treated it kind of maybe in our discussion today more like a behind the scenes type documentary, rather than that type of hosted podcast type thing. But I don't generally watch behind the scenes stuff. I know Kit and I were just talking about Ghost of Tsushima, and you said you watched all the special features.
Yeah, they have, well, okay, so there's an art book, there's a digital art book, and the version that I got came with a digital art book and like a 45-minute or 1 hour documentary where one of the makers of the game talks to 2 guys who are, one of them was a professor of history at the University of Tokyo, and who studies the time period that the game is set in, and the other one, I don't remember what his, but it was like 2 knowledgeable people about the game, about the time that the game was set in, and but yeah, I watched that. I mean, it's not a whole lot of special features, but yeah.
Well,
but I mean, I've watched I've watched a lot of Star Wars special features because Star Wars just sort of in general, like even a lot during the prequels, they went, every video release during the prequels had tons and tons of great special features and documentaries and making of stuff and interviews. But even as a little kid, when we finally got not taped for TV versions, taped from TV versions of the original trilogy, when we got the real thing, it came with a copy of From Star Wars to Jedi, which is like a 1983 documentary that they did about it says From Star Wars to Jedi, but it's like 99% about the making of Return of the Jedi. But I watched that a lot, even as a kid. So
I know Ken's answer. He watches every special feature.
Watch a lot of them. I mean, some of them I'm just like, yeah, I watch a lot of them. I mean, I'm a fan of I'm still a fan of digital media because of the Criterion edition of stuff, like things where it's like it goes so in depth, it gives you every little nook and cranny of the movie, and they have the creators on board. Those were great, and it's kind of like it's also going to be as the world slowly shifts into digital media away from physical. I'm still happy to have those hard copies for a multitude of reasons.
Huh. I had always, when I watched some special features, and this isn't entirely true of especially documentary type stuff like you were talking about, Kit, or the roundtable idea or an interview type idea, a lot of those special features were people on set talking to people on set about things, and they didn't really go very deep into much of anything. And I kind of wrote them off at a young age and said, if the work doesn't speak for itself, I don't need to know what they intended, right? Like, do I need to go and invest the time in the special features of any of the Zack Snyder films? It, to me, is like a hard answer for me because I didn't enjoy the movie. So,
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, I've never watched a special feature for a movie I didn't like.
All right.
Unless
right.
it was really bad. Like I would watch special features for Battlefield Earth just because it was so terrible.
Maybe I should watch them for Sky Captain then.
And I think it does depend on too, like what the movie is. Like, I mean, there's not every movie that needs to have a Criterion edition. Like, we don't need it for, certain movies, and others you're like, oh, well, I'm very curious where did this creator get his ideas? Where did they go in depth? And like, there's times where I am interested, and there's times where I'm just like, whatever, just put on the movie. Like the road trip with Brecken, is that with Breckenmeyer? I don't know. I don't think it's actually not. It's with God, I can't remember his name now. But Euro Trip, we don't need it. Like certain movies, it's not, I don't know, integral to the knowledge of the thing. But I'm happy to have it for more sci-fi stuff, especially stuff like the Marvel movies. But then it's kind of interesting to your point of, if they couldn't get it across in the film, why do I need to know it after? In the modern vernacular, where you're constantly inundated with tweets and interviews and things of like, oh, well, the reason why Hulk didn't do this is because of this, and we just figured that you got that across. I'm like, no, you did not. It's almost, I don't know, it feels weird to have that information after the fact. I'm like, oh, wait, so am I supposed to retroactively think, oh, that's what they meant in Infinity Wars, that Hulk wasn't scared, but that he was tired of fixing Banner's problems? I'm like, that didn't come across. It seemed like he was scared.
Yeah, it absolutely did. It seemed like Hulk didn't want to fight.
Yeah. And in interviews afterwards, I believe it was the Russos are like, oh, no, what it is he's just tired of saving Banner's butt. And I'm like, then, like, show, don't tell. Like, give me that, show me that information on the screen, show me that some way besides just saying, no. That doesn't come across. And I know it's a giant movie and you only have so much time to dedicate to every character, but I'm like, if you have an intent, you should really try to get it across there, because not everyone's going to watch the special features. Not everyone's going to watch the deleted scene where it's like, oh, he's having this fight and XYZ happens.
Right. A lot of people aren't following your Twitter ARG.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's just for people who want to watch the DVDs and the extras or the Blu-rays, you've got that, and it's good. But they should, to your point, they should do a better job of getting it across on film. So
I'm glad, though, to have watched this set of 8 episodes because none of these 8 episodes was about anything related to the story of the Mandalorian, and all related to why they ended up with what they ended up with and how they did it. And
Yeah.
that is kind of fascinating to me. And I wish I knew of more instances of stuff like this, because on a personal note here for a second, I guess, I work adjacent to this type of production, and it's a stalled media in a lot of ways when you don't get to do something as innovative as this. It feels like every time you get on a job, you go through the motions and you watch everyone else go through the motions, and it's nothing new or unique, even if it sounds or pretends to be.
That makes sense. Like they're always trying, like people are like, oh, I'm putting my spin on it, but to a degree, it's still just the same. It still has to be the same thing. Whereas with something as in depth as one, it's going to be Lucasfilm, so they're going to put X amount of money behind it regardless every time. But they are going to. ILM has always pushed the envelope. Like that's been their thing. It's like, or Weta. Weta is the same way, where it's like we're trying to innovate and create new ideas of how to create new visuals and make new stories. Whereas like for some productions, it's just like, okay, we just need to get from point A to point B and then to point C. If as long as we get there, we're fine. The job's done. Let's move on.
Well, they even talk about it in this, where one of the directors, Fukuyama, I don't remember his name.
Okay.
My bad.
No, I can pull it up.
He talks about how he did production before this, and yeah, like it was amazing to them that they had the time to not be doing 4 shots and move on, because they had to fit in X amount of stuff that Lucasfilm gave them the time to, I mean, they used a computer program in this to pre-shoot the show before they shot it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which was really, really cool to watch. I mean, all of the technology in this is cool to watch. We'll get to it in a minute, but like watching the directors off the bat talking about Famuyiwa Rick. I'm butchering his name, and I don't know why.
It's okay. And you tried.
I tried.
And
I tried. He had a lot of insights into standard production, because he didn't come from high end production. So kind of like more the area that most people in Hollywood live, of like, get the people in each department, get them to do their jobs, bang it out, get through the script. Like a lot of these other directors have had a lot of money thrown behind them, and it was interesting to hear his take on a lot of it when you get into the nitty gritty of how this all came together. But I really enjoyed like listening to. I've listened to Taika Waititi talk a ton of times, but I wanted to call out all the directors on being really awesome. I don't know if you guys enjoyed that first episode where there's just the round table of directors talking the whole time.
No, that was great, especially because for some of them, it might have been the first time you've been introduced to some of them. Like I know Taika's been in a bunch of stuff as of late. He's like kind of the new hotness right now, but there's definitely opportunity for like Deborah Chow. I hadn't been exposed to her too much as far as hearing her speak, whether it was on a panel or at other avenues, but it was cool to see that. And then also to know that she's the primary director behind Kenobi, and that's awesome. Like knowing that someone who, like, you just saw how their amazing performance as a director in this, and like I have so much more hope and anticipation for Kenobi now. Like that just sounds awesome.
It is fascinating. I think this basically shows what their strategy is going to be here, which is all these directors are going to split off and get their own Star Wars shows.
To a degree, I mean, I think some of them. I think she's the only one that's tapped for a full series. I think the rest are still going to be ones who kind of come in, and I wouldn't be surprised if even like out of, let's say, if Kenobi gets 8 episodes, if 2 of them are directed by like maybe Rick comes in on one and Bryce comes in on another. But I mean, because just to see like time wise, like how much space they have.
Right.
But it's I don't know if everyone's getting their own like, all right, here's your big bag of money, go direct something.
It was also really cool to get the main 3 actors, Pedro and Carl Weathers and Gina Carano, all on there and listening to them talk about, especially like Pedro Pascal and Gina Carano are young and have tried a lot of different stuff. Carl Weathers is I think they said at one point in this that he was basically retired. Hearing Carl Weathers talk about being in Star Wars was pretty awesome. I kind of wish they'd had Werner Herzog in there, though.
Yeah, but I mean, it's Werner Herzog. It's not too surprising that he wasn't able to step out and be in the, like he's getting up in age, so it's a little understandable.
Fair. But the big standout, I think, for me personally, of all of the roundtable, and I think Kit, you talked on previous episodes about following what he says very closely. Dave Filoni.
Yeah. So when we were talking about the directors, I didn't know of Rick Famuyiwa or Deborah Chow. Has Bryce Dallas Howard ever directed anything besides this? I know of her as an actress, but not as a director.
I believe she's directed.
She's done. She did Dad's. I'm sorry, that's actually a documentary. It doesn't look like she's done anything. No full length movies. I'll say that.
Well, if she has, I didn't know that she. I didn't know she was a director. I only knew of her as an actress.
I was wondering if she directed any of that new Arrested Development, but I don't think she did.
She did not, according to IMDb.
But I've watched many Taika Waititi shows and movies, and then Dave Filoni, of course, I was familiar with from his work on Clone Wars and Rebels and Resistance.
Last Airbender?
Yeah, of course. Last Airbender.
Yes, I did not before this. I did not know that he worked on that, but yes, I have seen.
But so you've seen like a bunch of interviews with Filoni then before this, or special features or whatever.
Yeah, the Clone Wars and Rebels video sets all came with. He also goes. He's one who is happy to go to conventions and be on panels and talk with people and meet with people and whatnot. He's a very he's very much unlike George Lucas in that
we'll get there.
He just likes going, like, I feel like even if he wasn't working at Lucasfilm, he'd still be going to like Star Wars Celebration and just talking with people about the stuff. So
I'm sure he did, right? Like it sounds like he did.
Yeah.
Man, George Lucas. Do I take a pause here or not? Yes. Because we could talk about George Lucas and Filoni here. Did anyone on that set, no one on that set ever looked unexcited during the footage? I'm sure there are days when they had tough days and they had, tempers and all that stuff happens on a set. But all this footage, of all the footage, no one ever looks upset. And then you get to George Lucas and they talk about him visiting the set. I've never seen someone more disinterested in what's going on around him than when they're like trying to explain to him what they're doing. He's just like, yeah, we tried this a long time ago. It just didn't work. And you're like, okay. Or like when Favreau goes, man, look, I pulled that cool thing from the holiday special so that, like the Mandalorian could have his little shotgun and then he's like, I didn't write that.
Yeah, I don't think, they've spent like 40 years trying to disavow the holiday special, and like I'm pretty sure that he had nothing to do with it, and it was just like whatever TV company got the rights to that took it and ran with it, and that led directly into him taking complete control of basically everything creatively from that point, because it was like he didn't like it at all.
Kidding.
Yeah. Although I will say I didn't know that it existed until I was an adult. When I was in college, I was in a comic shop and they had a VHS, like a bootleg VHS copy. And I was like, wait, what is this? And that was my first introduction to it. I certainly did not watch it when it came out, and I had never even heard of it. And I mean, I'm not saying it's not terrible, but I will say that I have a certain fondness for it and its terribleness now. Although I'm kind of like that. Like, I don't like mediocre movies, but I like really good movies or really, really terrible movies. If it's something that they can make fun of on Mystery Science Theater, then that's the kind of movie that I can also enjoy.
Well, he also seems to just have disavowed all those Ewok TV shows that he did that are.
Well, he wrote those.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's where I didn't know before this. That's where I thought blurgs came from Clone Wars, but apparently they were in that. Like,
yeah. I feel that I don't know. I think that he lucked out with Star Wars to a degree, in that it worked and it hit with fans and it was a really fun time. But in the end, like, he was more interested in just doing other things and making other projects, and nothing ever quite stuck for him. So he kind of begrudgingly kind of came back to Star Wars, and kind of had, I think during the prequels is when he was the most interested in Star Wars. I think that's when he was the most engaged, the most like, okay, let's build this world, let's fill it out more. I think that he, especially now, is just kind of like, yeah, he's soured on it. Like, he got a lot of grief from it, and also like just he's a different man than when he was as a young director, and so he's stepped away from it so much. And like you're saying, like, oh yeah, we tried that, and it's like, that's something too, is like, there's a lot of things that he tried to innovate with and move forward that was either hindered by time or money or tech, and it wasn't available yet. And so it's cool to see that he had that kind of creative talent, that genius there, where he's ready to take that next step, but also it's made him a little bit standoffish about it now. Like, you're like, yeah, I've done this game before. I don't know.
Yeah, I can't fault him for being whatever he is. I don't know him, obviously. I don't know that the footage of him portrays his actual feelings, but it seems to me that, like, if you got as much flack as he did for as long as you did, you just kind of either let it roll off you or just let it kind of have distanced you from the project, which may be what it comes off as. And I thought it was interesting to bring it up because him and Filoni describes him in this show as having the same love and interest in Star Wars as when you watch it, you understand Filoni has, like, this encyclopedic brain of how everything works. He just seems much more excited about it at any moment. Like, if you asked him, like, how a stormtrooper's helmet works, he would go off on it. Versus, if you asked George Lucas at this point, he probably would not.
Yeah, well, I think that's to that comparison. When Filoni got to know him, it was during Clone Wars. So I mean, in my head, I think of Clone Wars as part of that prequel era of trying to be creative. And I also think to the games where, when Lucasfilm was putting out a bunch of games like The Force Unleashed and like Battlefronts and stuff like that, that's when George was the most engaged with the universe, and that's kind of in that place where he met him. So that's why he carries on that energy. Also, he has the youth to have that energy. He's like, I'm just happier to, like, he's got 20 years on Lucas to be like, oh no, I just had 20 years more energy to put forward. And also, it's not burned out of him, where there's like, you tried to take everything from me and all I have left is my money, which is not bad. But
also, George Lucas is just a much more introverted person naturally. Like, even before, you can go back, and I mean, he was just all of the accounts that I've ever heard, even before Star Wars, like in the 70s and stuff, he was just quiet, and he's not that sort of outgoing personality, want to go meet strangers who have similar interests to him type person that Filoni is, or seems to be.
Yeah.
Okay. Fair point.
And this is all just our read on it too, is just like as best as we can tell from our experience watching things online.
It's interesting because, you said that you knew Filoni from the DVD features for Rebels and for Clone Wars. I got Rebels and Clone Wars from Disney Plus. So I have no bearing on Filoni before seeing him in this Mandalorian Gallery series. And
that's pretty much what he's like all the time. That's a good, I mean, how he acts on this show is pretty much how he acts at celebrations or any kind of interview or whatnot.
It makes me feel really bad for having bagged on some of the episodes of Clone Wars.
Well, it depends on what the context was. Like, if you're like, oh, the art department's horrible, you're like, okay, then you should apologize to Dave. If it's the story, because they involve the character that I still think is questionable at this point, then, that's other stuff. I don't know. And the character, not the people who portray the character either. Like, I don't think when people give a lot of grief to some of the actors who played characters that were, let's say, less favored, it has nothing to do with the actors to a degree. Like, they're asked to do a performance and they give it, and that's what they did their job. Where it's just kind of I remember hearing a statement one time where, like, if you didn't like a movie, blame the director. If you loved it, then you give credit to everyone who's a part of it. Like, it's like that's the role of the directors. Like, either it falls on their shoulders, or that's like kind of that. And like that's kind of where some of Clone Wars is going to be, and that's where I think certain characters land too. Like, someone looked at that character and said, yeah, let's give him this accent and make him act like this. And kids will love it. And I'm like, ugh, I don't know.
It's interesting that they tried to redeem him so many times, but it's not here nor there or part of this discussion, thankfully.
Yeah.
I loved how into Star Wars he was, and I really got an appreciation for how tied together things tried to be. I mean, there's still a lot of I take a lot of issues with I don't know that I would have put R2-D2 and C-3PO in so many episodes and then expected by the end of episode 9 they haven't been able to figure out what's going on around them. You know what I mean? Like, how does he not tell Luke that Vader's his father if he knows?
Because he had his memory wiped.
Sure.
I mean, that's one of those things where we go back to like show not tell. They literally said it in the movie, wipe the droid's memory, and they wiped his memory. The better one would be the one who didn't get his memory wiped, which is R2.
That's the one I'm talking about. Oh,
okay. I thought you were talking about 3PO.
No, 3PO had his memory wiped like 7 or 8 times. No,
Gotcha.
it's R2. R2, they talk specifically about how he never has his memory wiped, right? They had multiple episodes where R2 was a problem because he has secrets and nobody's wiped his memory.
Yeah. That's fair. And also, I mean, but there's also the I guess the throwaway idea that, he doesn't speak in words. But then again, he still plugs into tactical readouts. He still has, he still communicates. So there's something there of like, oh, by the way, or is it just that he's above that? He's like, the maker is just like, yeah, it's like that guy. What's the problem here?
Maybe droids don't understand the reproductive process.
Yeah, familial bonds, that doesn't matter to them. They're just like, oh, that's the guy.
So we're gonna nag on R2, but not on Yoda and Obi-Wan for, like, as Luke's flying off to go fight Vader, mention beforehand, oh, by the way, this might come up.
I mean, I don't know if we're nagging R2. We're just like, what we're curious, but no, he receives none of the blame. Like, it's definitely on Obi-Wan and Yoda for just like, do we tell him? Yeah, that's on them.
Have we talked since I said I think that the Clone Wars has made me hate all the Jedi?
No.
Okay.
But I mean, it's understandable because it's like I've heard a lot of people say, like, it gives you reasons to understand why, especially like they built it out in the 7th season as well. Like, oh, these guys from certain points of view didn't help anyone. They allowed slavery to exist, and they're supposed to be these wise, like spiritual leaders to a degree, and they're just like, well, you can't fight what the law is, and the law is that, so we have to abide by it. Like,
Well, that was
okay,
definitely sorry, Ken. That was definitely a something that was very important to the people who were making both the prequels and Clone Wars, was to drive home that the Jedi started out nobly, and then they got caught up in dogma, and that was their downfall. And I think that was a.
I think about the time that they start introducing themselves as commander is about the time you realize none of these Jedi are following their creed.
yeah, I mean they are and they aren't, and that's kind of what the problem is. It's like it's the road to hell is led with best good intentions.
Take two.
Sorry, there we go. Ken's drunk. But it's like you're trying to, but that's also the sway of the dark side. Palpatine put things in place to lead them to that point. So he's like, okay, well, we need commanders, and you guys are peacekeepers, so I guess you need to fill that role. And like that was part of, and that's where I get kind of bothered in that he has this master plan that's so infallible, but is that all these things were put into place so that he would get to the point where he could take out the Jedi and no one would bat an eye.
Well, I think the takeaway from watching Filoni's interviews and talking in the roundtable to me was that he gets and loves the Star Wars universe, maybe in a way that is almost fanish and has that encyclopedic knowledge, but it's a really good thing they brought in a Jon Favreau type to kind of rein that in for this 8-episode run, right? Of like, cool, grab all the cool references you can, put them in this bucket, and I will put them together, right?
I'll put them on screen.
Yeah. I'll make them make sense in a way that is not overwhelming. Because I put this in front of my wife. She doesn't watch any of the other shows that this is connected more heavily to. Like, there's a lot of references to the movies, let's be clear. And only 3 of the movies, really. But there's a lot of those. But she's not going to pick up on that, like, IG-11 is related to IG-88. She doesn't know who an IG-88 is.
The IG series. Get it together, Katie. Come on.
I know. Look.
But she caught the Kenner troop transport, right?
Yeah, of course she knew the Kenner troop transport was a toy before then that didn't exist. I didn't even know that.
What?
I really, honestly, I didn't know that wasn't I don't know. I didn't.
Well, I knew that because I had one when I was a kid.
Oh, I never had one. Mm-mm. Yeah. I grew up in the age of micro machines.
Well, I'm quite a bit older than you, Andy.
Not quite.
So.
I wouldn't say quite a bit, but enough of a bit that you were the Kenner generation and I was I don't even know who makes micro machines. Galoob generation.
I love micro machines. Are there still micro machines? Did Galoob go out of business?
Galoob probably went out of business, but I bet you there's still micro machines in existence. I doubt that they still have.
There were some. I feel like there were some around, like The Force Awakens, but
there definitely were, because there's a Naboo starfighter.
I don't think I've seen any since then.
I think.
I believe they were bought by. I mean, as with everything, there's always acquisitions. I'm not sure who owns the brand now. I know that there's other like mini brand, like tiny car brands, but let me see.
But I really like the Star Wars micro machines from the 90s. I thought that those were
they're
toys.
really good. They're like I may still have most of mine. They're that good. In a life of having started to purge many things, those still exist in a closet somewhere.
Yeah.
So Hasbro does own them now.
Okay.
They might not be doing much with the brand currently, though. I haven't seen it out there.
Yeah.
They are not.
Yeah. Speaking of toys, one thing that Filoni says a lot that Lucas told him was that Star Wars is ultimately for the kids, quote unquote. I want to know if you guys agree with that statement.
Absolutely.
Interesting.
To the point where, so back when they had tapped the two guys who made Game of Thrones to do some Star Wars project, I think it was a trilogy, but I'm not.
They dodged a bullet on that one.
Yeah.
But when they announced that, and everybody got super excited and thought that, oh, this is going to be the Old Republic, and we'll get Revan, and that'll be great. My first thought was like, I don't want an R-rated Star Wars, and if like that's something that I absolutely don't want. Like, I don't mind that they have darker, more adult stories like Empire and Revenge of the Sith,
Yeah, how
but
do
I
you
certainly
square those,
don't.
though?
What?
How do you square that with that argument of like Revenge of the Sith is for the kids?
No, that's what I'm saying. Like, I definitely don't want it ever to get darker than those movies. Like that, I feel like those movies are the line, and you shouldn't. There's definitely like I've talked about this a lot of times with friends of mine, and I'm like, I don't want to show Revenge of the Sith to kids. I feel like PG-13 is a good rating because I don't want to show that to little kids.
Yeah.
And on the off chance that they understand what's happening when Anakin goes in and massacres all those little kids. Like, I actually feel like Revenge of the Sith kind of in a few places went too far.
Well, the mythology surrounding Star Wars had gotten so far to that point that it was like, you got to show that he's evil or something. I don't know. I have a hard time from like
kill little kids.
I understand that they didn't need to go that far.
And in Clone Wars, they had the perfect response to that, which is like Palpatine taking the kids off to teach them how to be
Inquisitors.
Yeah, thank you. I couldn't. The name was escaping me for a second, but yeah. I mean, you didn't have to have him massacring a room full of toddlers, and like, yeah. But that was my fear, was that they were going to give it to these guys, and there was going to be like, a bunch of brutal stuff. There was going to be rape. Yeah, and I'm like, I don't want that in my Star Wars. That's not. I want PG Star Wars.
I think that they've mostly hit the mark, even with the side stuff like the Mandalorian and Rogue One, of being mostly hopeful. Although Rogue One ends on I guess it doesn't end on a complete downer, but
it literally ends on hope, dude.
I don't know. I guess if you want to take the last shot, yes.
Yeah, I do. I mean, that's what I'm saying. It's like it ends with hope. That's. I mean, but I do know what you mean. Like, it is quite
it's a heck of a lot of a downer to sit kids through, especially when Vader starts blasting through that ship with his lightsaber, which is really cool for an adult.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think this is one of those reasons a lot of people have asked me if I've shown our 5-year-old Star Wars yet, and I said no.
I would say I think Star Wars is for kids, and for as far as like the mainstream goes. Like, there's definitely going to be, I think that even from the beginning, once you started having side story novels and video games, and that's still in its relative youthful phase of Star Wars. Even before the prequels, you could step outside of those bounds in those arenas. As far as like the main like saga, you would want to stay more PG-13 for several reasons, but you want to be able to have a movie kids can see. I don't know if a kid's going to understand.
A kid can watch
The Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, a kid can watch what happens to Han Solo and feel hopeful. I mean, like, I get and I like actually the overarching idea that these movies and stories need to, and I don't know how much Filoni was involved in those 3 new movies, if at all. But having that as a kind of like a basis idea of like these have to be at some point providing hope to people is a good one. I just was wondering if you thought they hit the mark, because I didn't see it in a lot of it. So Ken thinks maybe no, Kit thinks yes, probably.
Are we talking about Mandalorian specifically, or are we talking about like the Disney era movies in general.
The Disney era.
I think that Disney has been very careful to make sure that their stuff is,
Accessible.
yeah, family friendly,
Okay.
which I'm totally okay with in terms of Star Wars. Like I have no interest in like I said, like I don't want a hard R Star Wars at all. And yeah, I mean, I guess the end of Rogue One is pretty depressing for, or could be pretty depressing for a little kid.
Right, yeah, because they've watched Jin the whole movie, right? Like,
Yeah,
it's hard for a smaller kid, like a 15-year-old, if you're calling that a kid, would be like, ah, cool, it ends on hope. But,
yeah,
you know, like a 9-year-old, maybe the target of some of those earlier Lucas era prequels, they might not grasp why is Jin gone, you know?
yeah.
I don't know. I thought that was I'm glad we talked about it because it was a good one. So
Although I will say I also tried to watch The Phantom Menace with a little kid, like a 3 or 4 year old, and it never, until Darth Maul came on the screen and he ran away scared, the kid, I did not. It never even occurred to me that like maybe he wasn't old enough for this, and how scary Darth Maul is, because I watched that, you know, as an adult. And so like it never even occurred to me, and I felt like such a jerk because like he was literally like, he ran down the hall and was hiding in the closet, and I was like, oh man, like I feel horrible, and I didn't even think about that. But you know, Darth Maul's scary. So, and up until that point, like he was generally okay with the movie.
okay.
Was it Darth Maul on Tatooine or Darth Maul on Naboo?
Naboo, when he like takes off his
Hood.
and you can see the horns and stuff. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
was
I liked
curious.
that they brought up Maul in the discussion of like every Star Wars figure has a silhouette.
Yeah.
I thought
Yeah.
that was a good that was pretty good discussion of like the behind the ideas of costumes, and behind the makings of iconic characters is a silhouette idea. And it kind of like
Yeah.
plays into their new tech. How did you guys also have the same like, I know what they're talking about moment when they started talking about Epic and Unreal Engine and all that sort of stuff?
But I mean, it's
little bit.
because I'm still a gamer to a degree. So it's like you do hear about the Epic engine, the Unreal Engine, and how that plays out. And then they also talk. I mean, there's so many different video game houses that are out there, and they still use the same thing because it's just so well created.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, that's about the only game engine that I know of, and that's because going back to what Ken was saying, like half of the games in existence or that are being made now use that engine. But I mean, that's basically like the extent of my knowledge of the engine is that it's so because it's so popular.
Ubiquitous.
Yeah.
yeah.
Did it blow
And
your
it's-
mind when they showed what they called the volume for the first time?
Yes, just because of the sheer vastness of all of those screens. But I mean, as soon as they said it, like that made total sense in that they can adjust the background to make, you know, to fix when he was talking about it, and he was describing needing to fix the lighting and stuff so that the lighting plays on the actors properly for how they're gonna do it, and being able to fix adjust stuff on the set. Like when he gets there, they have it set up one way. He looks in the camera and realizes that he wants, you know, the sun on the other side or something like that, and they can just type it into the computer and flip it and immediately do that. That made a huge amount of sense to me. That would be absolutely a wonderful invention to somebody who is filming something and has to do that kind of post-production work with computers and backgrounds and special effects.
Do you think once they wrap the Mandalorian that the volume becomes like a tourist attraction?
I think that the volume is going to be used on almost every set. Like I think that that probably the biggest thing from this show to me is that this was almost an infomercial for that, and that I bet that that ILM gets a lot of work from this from people now wanting to use that technology, because I mean that just seemed like such a no-brainer to me,
I
for
can guarantee
not
they're
needing to
already
make backgrounds and sets and
yeah,
things,
yeah.
and just being able to change it. If you look at it and you get to the set and you look at it and you go, oh no, this is wrong, I need to do this differently, and being able to just instantaneously do that, I mean, that's going to be such a huge benefit to filmmakers.
Oh, it's gonna. I guarantee you, they're already making another one of these. The idea
Yeah.
to me that you went to the hills of Scotland with a camera crew and you filmed this stuff, right? For them to then put into the Unreal Engine and recreate on a set back in Los Angeles, and that you can pause sundown at a certain time, and that the screens of the set that you're on are doing the lighting for you. Right? Like the reflections in the helmet are not jibs and tons of matte blacks and lights and all this sort of stuff, because they have a silver helmet on this guy. You'd go crazy trying to block the right lights into there, and instead the set is lighting his helmet with the correct colors reflected back into the camera.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Blows my mind.
And they had the hardest type of person to, like, the main character is this shiny thing. It's like if they decided to make, the very first time they used the volume, they got the Silver Surfer, and they're like, well, let's just set the bar so damn high that we have to do nothing but succeed at this point, because it's so impossible. Like if they'd have done this with Boba Fett, they wouldn't have. I mean, it'd be cool and all, but you wouldn't know to the degree to which how amazing this is because of the circumstances of the character's costume.
Right. But when they show that spaceport episode and they're inside that docking station or whatever, and you see the volume all set up like that, it was so amazing to think that you couldn't tell the difference of what was foreground and background and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And to go back to what we were talking about earlier about how I watch all of the special features, I'm gonna touch on two of them and how much better this is. So if you watch the Revenge of the Sith making of or Attack of the Clones making of stuff, there's a specific spot with Padme running through the droid factory, and they actually built all of the stuff with green covering on it, so that she has stuff to jump over and duck under, and she's doing it and she's like, this is ridiculous. And then you have this where Carl Weathers is talking about how everybody's envisioning the same thing. You're not standing on a green screen set, and everybody's envisioning something different, and the director's just telling you, oh, there's, some lizard guys over there and there's some mountains over here. Like you can actually see it. There's that. And then there's also like for the Force Awakens, the end of the Force Awakens and Last Jedi, they went to Skellig Michael Island, which is it's like a historical, because it was there was a church there. It's a world history monument, and they had to get a special permit. They had to helicopter stuff in. They built a gigantic foam monster to milk, and they had to take that to this island, and they could only have so many people on the island. To not have to do that, to be able to just go and film Skellig Michael with 4 people with cameras, and then leave, and then go back and be able to arrange stuff however you want on this, and not have to ship 100 people to an island that has a whole bunch of restrictions because it's so historical and so hard to get to. And I really feel like this technology is going to be a big help to to the film industry, and really sort of ironically sort of where and they kind of talk about this a little bit, like this is kind of where George Lucas was trying to go his entire career, was like being able to set this up in his garage.
Yeah. But also on that note too, though, they do also do a great job of having practical things there when they need to. Like there's when I want to say Krill brings up Mando on this cart, there is like they're in the volume, but there is a tread from the sandcrawler there, and there is like there's animatronic or like puppeteered the name of the animal that they ride, and I'm drawing a blank on it right now.
Blurg.
The Blurg, right. So like they have them on these mounts so that they simulate the movement. So it's like they didn't just go, okay, well, we'll put you on something, and they worked it out so that they're still practical in there, and it makes it so much more believable and adds that texture that's missing when you do just full green screens, and they put the time in to make it feel more lived in and real, and I say real in quotations, but
Tactile.
Thank you. Yeah. And it's like there's it's not just like, well, we've got the volume, so we'll just cover it with that. Like, no, let's put in the time, let's do this. And that's what I appreciate so much about the I want to say the dedication to the craft. Like this is drastically going to change things, but it could very much become, if people are just cheap and they don't care, it could be a new green screen and just like, yeah, but it's better. It's like, yeah, but if you're not putting in the time to make it better, it's going to fall just as flat when you try and do another movie with it. Like you have to have that passion for the craft. And that's what you get from the team of behind this.
They also had a passion for using the universe as it existed.
Mm-hmm.
So like I think Favreau says at one point in this thing that their goal was to live on the outskirts and to take, he likened it to getting the action figures here, Filoni did, like getting the action figures and you got all the peg trash, right? That was just there, right? But somehow your cousin or your uncle managed to get you the Boba Fett. And so like you made a whole game out of, you had the Boba Fett and all the peg trash and that was it. Right? Like,
IG-88 and an Ugnaught. Here we go.
Yeah, all right. The best game ever would be if I had 70 blurgs. Like so they made the show using stuff you hadn't seen very much of. And so because you hadn't seen very much of it, it's like, well, what is an Ugnaught? What does an Ugnaught want out of life? Like they get to create the universe where the Ugnaught served the Empire but got to retire, or they got to create the universe of what does it mean to be bounty hunters. And we'll get into the Mandalorian stuff separately in a minute, but like I think they nail there what you're talking about tactily also applies to like how you treat the items in the universe that are given to you to use or chosen to use, right? And not wandering into the middle of it and being like, well, we're going to change how blasters work. Now they, or like, we're going to change how, I don't know, all sorts of stuff, right? That you could have dropped the Millennium Falcon into this or something and like made it run on gas, or I don't know. And I guess it runs on gas. Now everything runs on gas thanks to that one movie. But you know what I'm trying to say here, right?
Yeah. We do. We get you. You don't like The Last Jedi. We get it. We know.
Don't say what I don't like. I'm saying what I do like.
Yeah, no, and that's the thing is like so it's not just like so that's one thing that I kind of felt that George did at times, which was fine because he's George and he's able to, was when we had the mythos of like, well, what happens after Return of the Jedi? And he's like, well, no one touch Clone Wars era because that's going to be mine, and I'm going to do this. They're like, okay, fine, we'll go off, we'll go past it, we'll go in another way, and we'll do other things. And people built this, decided, okay, we're just going to keep extrapolating, going from there. And then he came back and it's like, well, no, this is what it is. Well, it's like, oh, okay, some people have done something like this. He's like, I don't care. I'm just gonna. This is what this means now. And this is what it is. And you're like, kind of like, I mean, that's fine. You can do that, but there is some kind of relationship to the other stuff that's been created, and you just kind of build on it. You don't have to. I'm wiping the slate clean, and I'm doing this.
Yeah,
and
maybe.
so it's. I don't know. I think I get what you're saying. Like
Yeah,
you're building an interwoven thing as opposed to
Right.
building the new thing.
It's taking. They took a great idea on the outskirts instead of trying to wallpaper over something you already knew with new ideas. Right.
Yeah.
All right. So speaking of connecting to the universe, do you guys want to talk about the wider universe, or do you want to talk about, because they really get into it, and I think that off the bat, before we start, I think everyone should watch the last episode of this.
The documentary series.
Yes, I'm sorry. They should also watch the last episode of The Mandalorian and the 7 before that.
And the last one was connecting the universe. Was that the last one?
Yeah, the last one was like, here's all the references we made to the rest of the universe, and also includes the like interviews with the 501st people and all that.
Yeah. Okay.
Also, if you're listening, you should also watch the last episode of the Clone Wars.
Okay,
Agreed.
sure.
And Ken says to watch all of it constantly.
No, don't watch all.
There's
of
probably a few more Clone Wars episodes you should watch too, but
Damn right.
definitely the last one.
The last one was good. Yeah,
It was. I'm not being sarcastic at all. I think that the last I really enjoyed the last 4. Was it 4? I think it was 4 or 5, whatever.
Once they stopped
the
trying
last
to catch
story arc of the
people
Clone
back
Wars.
up again, and they were like, Ahsoka's back to being in command of troops, and they go to Mandalore and all that.
Yeah.
It's somewhat important actually for the rise of it, but I think this last episode where they connect to the like rest of the universe, they don't talk about some of the parts that I actually have like legitimate questions about, but it was really cool to see, like you mentioned earlier, Kit, hey, we found this Kenner toy that famously was never in anything. You want to use it?
I hope that they do that with more stuff. I hope that they take some of the mini rigs, the Kenner mini rigs, and work them in there. That would be great.
It would be pretty cool to see an on-screen E-wing.
The orange thing, I don't even know what it's called. The orange thing that would fold in half and like it kind of looks like a coffin spaceship. I don't know. I had that when I was a kid. They should work that in there somehow.
Yeah, I mean, bringing
I'm
back.
unfamiliar with this orange coffin. Now I'm like, what is that? What's the orange coffin?
I will look it up right now and tell you what the name is.
I'm down. I'm very down.
Okay. Well, or like, okay, my.
I'm ashamed that I don't actually know.
My go-to would be like seeing like T65.
It is the AST5.
AST5. Okay, now we have to pause
according
the podcast.
to the box. Yeah.
And like look at whatever this thing is.
It stands for Armored Sentinel Transport Vehicle.
Oh
Number
wow,
5.
this is
What is
a
this
random
thing?
toy thing. That is hilarious.
Wow, that is like a
so all of
Uber
the-
toy.
All of the mini rigs were some of them were kind of close. Like they made a tiny miniature version, like an escape pod sized version of the Imperial shuttle, and they made
ISP-6.
the same type thing with the sail barge, and but most of these. So the story behind these is Kenner wanted something. In the movies, they didn't have anything that was small enough, like a small vehicle that they could sell at a cheaper price point. They wanted something in between the individual figures and the full-size vehicles, like an X-Wing or a Snowspeeder, and that were the cheapest vehicles. They needed something in the middle. So they just started inventing stuff. Kenner just started coming up with stuff to sell in this price range. And they got somebody. They started it with Empire Strikes Back, I think. I don't think that there was anything before that, but they basically just had like artists come in and be like, just make something that's really small that would look okay in Star Wars.
That
And that's where these came from.
INT4. There's something in here called an INT4, and it
Yeah.
looks very much like what end up being the clone gunships. If you look, I
For
can't tell if it's
those of us, for those that are just listening at home, we'll put some of these images up on Instagram, on the We Were Gamers Instagram, so that you can get a look at what we're talking about too.
Absolutely.
So if you're at your desk at work, you don't have to Google it yourself. Check out the Instagram, and you'll see some of these photos of what we're talking about.
Wow. Oh, the INT4 fits inside of the AT-AT. That's insane.
Oh wow. Okay, that is crazy. It's like a weird little, like a skim walker. That's okay. That is interesting.
Yeah,
I would be
weird.
so down to see, especially the coffin one that you mentioned. The
orange
AST,
one here, the AST.
yeah, the AST5 is. I remember seeing that, and there's stuff too because I mean, for those who listen, I work in a comic shop, and we get stuff, people who bring stuff in to sell, and there's times where we get stuff where we're just like, what is this? And we just have to look at like, okay, it was from Kenner, the branding's this, and we pull it up and we find these things that are just like forgotten to time. It's pretty cool though.
Yeah, they are. That's pretty sweet. Nice pull. Yeah, for me it would be like an E-wing, some sort of actual ship that has existed in the like canon or previous canon that never really made an appearance. I mean,
The
I
E-wing is
already got
very
the
similar
Outrider,
to.
so
Yeah, I say the E-wing is very similar, almost to it's one, the Moldy Crow. It's also similar to a Raptor. No, not a Raptor. Viper from Battlestar.
oh yeah, very very close to a Battlestar Viper.
That's interesting. I hadn't. I'm sure I've seen it before, but it's also one of those things where it's like I know there's a K-wing that I couldn't describe to you to save my life. So
What is the Moldy Crow?
the Moldy Crow is Kyle Katarn's ship from Dark Forces.
Oh yeah, but that's much bigger, right? Because that's like a gunship that he has.
Yeah, I mean it depends on the iteration, because sometimes it looks like it's just a 2-person seater, and then sometimes it's depicted as a much bigger ship. So that's the fun of Star Wars.
How'd you guys feel about the TIE fighter bending in half?
I was
That
down
was
for
kind
that.
of cool.
Yeah, it was a cool presentation because you kind of like your mind is expecting certain it's going to land, but then like how does he get out? Because he doesn't have a landing platform. He doesn't have a ramp to come over to, which would be really funny if the 5 guys run over a little ladder to them. Instead, it folds up and it's like, oh, like especially because again it's the changing of expectations of like you like, okay, he's going to land, and then it starts to fold. You're like, what? My mind is bending. Like, what is going on here?
Well, it's never happened before, right? Like they're
Yeah.
always standing up like normal TIE fighters in formation on their wingtips.
Yeah. And so
Are
that
they
was
standing or are they hanging?
I don't know.
Trying to
See,
remember
that's
if
the
I've
thing.
ever seen
I've never
TIE
looked
fighters
closely
sitting
enough.
on their wings.
Well, I mean, you got to take what you get with Rebels, and that's you never know.
Oh
if
yeah, I
that's,
guess.
like,
I guess that there is that. I
There's a lot of
I
them
was just focusing on the movies, but yeah,
sitting on the ground in Rebels.
yeah.
yeah.
Filoni said something interesting in here that was, hey, it's animation, so sometimes the representation is what it is. Like when they were talking about creating the Darksaber for screen for live action, he's like, just get it close because like it's animation is a style.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And
I don't know.
that's one thing that I've heard a lot of people complain about is not that it's more to the style fact of like people hate that in Rebels the lightsabers are thinner. And it's like that's the style for it.
Yeah.
And the style is different. Like when you see Yoda in Rebels, it's different than how he appears in Clone Wars because that's just how they depict him.
Yeah.
And that's the style of that show.
I have less of an issue with the style and more like it took me aback that the TIE fighters could do this because I read comics all the way through the 90s. They never dealt with it. The TIE fighters landed on their wings. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
And then you just assumed they had like a rope ladder to get out or something.
Yeah.
You know,
I think, yeah, they probably do have that like an emergency too, but
bottom
also
hatch or something like that.
yeah. Well, also too, like usually depending on like where you see them sitting on their wings, it's usually like in the factory. It's like, okay, well that's when you see them in, I want to say in most hangars, they are like held by those pods and then you kind of drop in from the top. But in like Rebels, I specifically remember them being in TIE fighter factories, and they're sitting on their wings. And I think sometimes on maglev stuff to keep to move them around.
It was interesting to me that they didn't use a different TIE fighter, like a TIE Interceptor or a TIE X or a TIE Advance or a TIE anything else, where they could have been like, yeah, TIE fighters are TIE fighters. This guy's important. It's weird that he landed in a normal TIE fighter.
Well, he didn't though. That's just it. Like that's part of the subverting your expectation is you saw a standard TIE fighter and it wasn't. And that's that at that point you're like, "Oh shit, okay. Things are different now. Things are not what I expected." And it's if he had shown up in an interceptor or TIE bomber, you'd have been like, "Okay, well this is a special TIE bomber. That's why." But it's like your mind you would have already been adjusted like, "Okay, my expectations are what they are." And this took it that extra step by putting you in a little bit more familiar ground.
Yeah, it took me aback for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to say that TIE fighters don't land, they crash or get shot down. but then, like, so much of, but then going off of what you were saying, and a lot of this I think is from the old canon and the old role-playing game and stuff, where they frequently talk about the fact that like TIE fighters were meant to be disposable and cheap. They were built, the Empire built them. They didn't have shields. They were like, you have one X-wing and we're gonna launch 100 TIE fighters and we don't care if we lose 5 pilots because they're meaningless to us. We just want to have the cheapest, easiest to produce TIE fighters that can go and shoot stuff down. So it is kind of funny to see a high-ranking official in one. I mean, Vader was in one too, but
and
a
they talk
fancier
about
one.
in Rebels too how they were developing one with shields and
yeah.
Yeah. Did you have like a favorite universe connection or like, oh, cool, they brought that over when they mentioned him in the last episode or something maybe that wasn't in the last episode of this behind the scenes stuff that you were like, oh yeah, why didn't they talk about this?
I think my favorite thing was when they talked about bringing in the 500 first, because they had, like, I had actually heard about that prior to the special. There's different groups of like the 500 first that kind of let it slip that, hey, by the way, we got to be on the set for this. We got to, because they ran out of suits. And then like when they got to that point, Ebony heard it and she's like, "What? That's amazing." And I'm like, I know. It's like that's a cool revelation to have, and they did a really good job of presenting it. And like that was probably the highlight of that episode. I mean, there's definitely other things like with the troop transport scene like brought to life, but that was probably my favorite. Maybe second by the incinerator trooper.
I was happy. I mean, I don't know how extended universe this is, but I was super happy that they had the Death Troopers in there because I love Death Troopers. So
did they mention how? I mean, so one of the implications of the Death Trooper was that they all died on Scarif. So how did they bring them back here? Or they just now they've changed the canon and they didn't all die on Scarif?
Well, the ones on Scarif died. I don't think that they ever meant to imply that that those were all of the Death Troopers in existence.
Weird that you wouldn't have had them pop up at any other time, you know?
Well, they were invented in like
16, I know.
But like, I mean,
I was trying to make it neat and clean. I'm like, oh yeah, there were only like 2 squads of Death Troopers and they're all dead now because they're on Scarif.
I mean, they're the Navy SEALs. They're the elite. So like all the times we've seen troopers, it's usually just been like you said with TIE fighters, like throw 100 at them, we'll see what happens. In some extended universe, we've seen other teams like Scar Squad and stuff in the comics where they're like, oh, these are elite troopers where they're specialized just for this. So
yeah, I do like the Death Trooper a lot. I just was taken to be like, oh, those are Death Troopers. Weird, but it's cool to see him again.
I was so happy. That was like, I knew that at that moment that Jon Favreau was Santa Claus because right around Christmas he gave me episodes with Death. Really, the last episode of The Mandalorian, just like I felt like Taika just hit the nail right on the head, and
with a sledgehammer, dude.
Yeah, I love speeder bikes. I felt like he had just the right amount.
That was mine.
Having the two guys talking like
Yeah.
troopers in the beginning, the two scout troopers, and then having IG-11 riding through town, like in the animated, the Tartakovsky animated thing, and shooting stuff. Like I don't know. I felt like that episode was so great.
I felt
I loved that episode.
I felt like they had, and this is probably Taika again, but the moment that whoever came up with the idea for the biker trooper to shake his pistol,
Yeah.
like it was gonna
that
do
was great.
something to make his accuracy better,
Yeah.
is when you get to have the moments that didn't land in a lot of the newer Disney stuff, I think, of like trying to create comedy out of levity, right? It just seems like they have such a good pace in that, and yeah, bringing the bike troopers back was going to be my thing. That I wish they had talked about, like bringing those across. They did a lot. I mean, they talk about like, I didn't even know about the ice cream machine thing. Like this is a thing that I didn't like. The what's his name? The dude's name, the running guy. Wilfred,
I don't know.
Wilfred something.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. It's in Empire Strikes Back, where they just grab a prop and just run off with this way, and it's an ice cream machine, and that's how they re-earned that by making that the container for the Beskar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like but getting the insight into the community, that's a community thing, right? Like they picked that up from going to Star Wars Celebration. So that's cool. A lot of that's cool. But it's time, though, for you to answer questions that I wish that they had answered. I was hoping for the Filoni Explains episode, and it never came. So someone who has more knowledge of this universe has got to answer these questions, because they are now directly connecting this back to the Clone Wars series on multiple occasions. You don't need to have watched it, but if you have watched it, I need to know some things you can explain for me.
You can try. I mean, the thing is, too, some of the still, even with Clone Wars and Rebels, there's still stuff that's not fully kind of delved into. Like they talk of clans and. Oh, sorry, I'm spoiling the lead. But go ahead.
How are the Mandalorians a creed, not a race?
I will go with my guess, and I haven't ever. I don't think that I've ever heard anybody explicitly say this, but my feeling is that it went from being a race because they had a planet in Clone Wars, but then they got destroyed because of at the end of the Clone Wars they got and so there's clearly through Rebels and this, we know that there's a diaspora, and that's probably when they started saying, probably, I'm sure that they took people who weren't like they would adopt Mandalorians. They probably were fine with adopting Mandalorians before the Clone Wars, but I feel like after the Clone Wars, that with the what the Empire did to them and having the diaspora, that it was probably became much more important that they were, just as a matter of survival, being able to have it be a creed and anybody could be a Mandalorian and anybody can join us if you follow the code.
Yeah. And it's actually similar to the way they did the Sith in old canon. The Sith was a race. They did have a planet, and they did practice the dark side of the Force. But then after millennia of wars, they were decimated, and it became more of a tradition that was carried on by a wide variety of people, not just the genetic Sith. And it became more of like, well, these are our teachings and these are our beliefs. And that's what the Sith becomes, so that by the time we get around to, the Phantom Menace, it's like, oh no, these are their beliefs. Palpatine is a Sith by dedication, by creed. as opposed to being a genetic Sith from the planet that I don't remember. I want to say Malachor, but I'm
Sounds
probably
right.
not. Yeah. So that it's similar to that where then that's the kind of the problem is like because we've had so many preconceived notions of like when we just started out with Boba Fett's a Mandalorian. Okay, well then that's where he's from. Not exactly, and you just build all these stories and just kind of your own expectations fill in the gaps. Till now, when we see, I think one of the best ones is seeing Sabine Wren's story in Rebels. It's like you see like this person looks like they could be of Asian descent. These people look like they're clearly maybe Finnish or just pretty white to put it straight. And you see different nationalities to a degree. So it's like, okay, it doesn't have to be just a genetic person from this planet. It can be people who adopt it and people who come in. And that's what I've kind of gathered over these years now. And so by the time we get to like, this is my creed, this is my religion, that's what it is.
It's interesting
I guess
to me that they don't explicitly still seem to say what happened to the Mandalorians. They say that Sabine developed a weapon, the weapon got used against the Mandalorians and their planet's decimated. But by the end of Rebels, you get the idea that maybe like there's actually a whole group. I mean, like, what's her name that I actually kind of don't like from Clone Wars? The sister of the leader.
Bo-Katan.
Yeah, Bo-Katan is supposed to be like redeemed by Sabine's arc, even though she's pretty much responsible for a lot of the problems that Mandalore has had. By starting up Death Watch with what's his name? You can come up with all these names that I can't remember for me.
Vizsla.
Pre Vizsla, who's Jon Favreau's character.
Yeah.
So Pre Vizsla, Bo-Katan start the Death Watch.
Not start, but they're part because the Death Watch had been around for a while already.
Okay. And then a lot of problems happen, and then she's now the leader of their people. At the end of Sabine's arc, what people then? If is Din Djarin part of some like splinter group that's not actually the Mandalorians? And then why is there only one? There's a lot of like open stuff here of like, well, who is Boba Fett a part of, and why is there only one above ground and all that kind of stuff? If they're not part of the main group,
there's definitely Mandalorians still living on Mandalore under
Imperial rule.
Under Imperial rule in sort of the Vichy France sort of sense, but like being occupied and having Mandalorians do the rule, doing the ruling, but the Mandalorians who are in charge are directly
puppets.
Yeah, they're a puppet government of the Empire, but then there's also the people who are living off-world, and I mean, there's clearly a large group of Mandalorians who resent this, and whether they're living on the Mandalorian system or not, there's clearly a lot of Mandalorians who don't want to participate
into the Empire.
But by the time we're watching this, the Empire is gone, right?
To a degree.
So
not in Rebels.
No, I'm sorry. We're going back to the Mandalorian.
Oh, in Mandalorian, yeah.
So we'll go back to the Mandalorian time frame, knowing what we know from Rebels. Mandalore is free now.
Mandalore was freed from at that point the rule. Actually, I was going to say about the rule of the Empire, but they're not, because at the end of Rebels, I'm mixing things up now too, because I'm going back to Clone Wars thoughts. At the end of Rebels, it's still it's still before the Galactic Civil War, so like there's a lot that can happen there.
Right, but by the time we get to the Mandalorian, you think that the more stuff has happened to Mandalore that they haven't told us about? Because by then you'd think all these people would go back to Mandalore, right? Like,
Yeah, no, I think that definitely that and they talk about it in the show. Werner Herzog's character, that I can't think of what his name is right now. But he talks about that, and I mean, I always
we were told
I
previous
figured
to
something
all this,
happened at post Rebels and pre Mandalorian, or between Rebels and the end of Rebels and the beginning of and Return of the Jedi. Clearly, something happened.
some part of my memory comes back to when the expanded universe existed during the prequels. We got the stories that told us that Boba Fett and Jango Fett were like pretty much the last Mandalorians because their planet had been destroyed by war, right? And that's like Redux, and so now we don't have like a whole bunch of reasons for those people to exist. And so who does Boba Fett end up being if these were the rules that were in place, during the war? And if they did do something to the planet of Mandalore, why does Boba Fett get to be Darth Vader's right-hand man?
Because
I mean, they're also really cagey about Mandalore not Mandalore, Boba Fett and his Mandalorian
roots.
Yeah, well, like, and strangely so, because like we have, if you go to Wikipedia and you look up some random character in the cantina, there will be like 10,000 words of background story on them, but they're like, people for years have been directly asking. It's like Boba Fett and Yoda are the two that they don't ever want to go into, and they want to keep them mysterious. And they're like, well, is Boba Fett a Mandalorian? And they'd be like, well, he's wearing Mandalorian armor, or like, well, he's a clone of a guy who was wearing Mandalorian armor. It's like they want to save that for a later story, and they don't want to conflict with it, so they don't want to actually come out and definitively say anything.
I wonder if it's just because things get too complicated.
Yeah, they've watched what's happened with Wolverine over the years. It's like, once you take away that mystery, he's no longer that cool, or he loses something. And this way, he hasn't lost it yet.
I mean, he lost it a little bit when we got to watch him in Clone Wars be a little brat.
Yeah, I mean,
although him growing up in prison explains a lot.
Yeah. Well, him also, there's a lot there too of like him growing up with when he does missions where he's surrounded by clone kids who are essentially his twin and being trained by people who have his father's face. There's a lot there when you start to get into it of like the psychology of what happens to Boba Fett over the years.
Right.
Like there's a lot there to pick from, but there's also like, as far as like the origin, they're like Kid said, they've been very picky about giving you any kind of information.
I guess the origin matters more for Jango Fett than it does for Boba Fett. We know who Boba Fett is, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And we also know Jango didn't care about taking off his helmet. He's like, whatever.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We were going to get there.
Well, I don't think that becomes a thing until after Rebels, because nobody in Rebels or Clone Wars ever has a problem taking off their helmet either.
Well, not even the Death Watch. And
maybe that's part of what happens during the Purge of Mandalore.
Well, see, that's the thing. You keep calling it the Purge of Mandalore, like it's some sort of thing we know about.
No, I use it because they use it. They use it as I want to say they used it in the Mandalorian.
Okay.
I believe it's Gideon who uses that term.
Okay. The Death Watch is the ones that saved Din Djarin.
Yes.
Could you place when they did it and which Death Watch did it? Because
I would think that it would have to be during the Clone Wars, because there are battle droids trying to kill him.
Right.
There's B2 battle droids within the...
Okay, so he's saved by the Death Watch during Clone Wars, when the Death Watch are pretty much bad guys.
Well, that's the thing too. Is like I think when we think of the Death Watch, you were saying like, oh, she started the Death Watch with Vizsla. I don't think she did. I think they existed for a while. Like they were the Protectorate. They were then that there's actually a term for Protectorate, so I shouldn't say that. They were Guardians to a degree, and they've evolved over time into being more the like, oh, we're the idealists, we're the zealots, and they moved further down that timeline and got more trying to think of the right words here. They got more dedicated to their ideals, I guess.
So then he's adopted into the Death Watch, or he's adopted by the Death Watch and taken to Mandalore, where he's raised, but then becomes part of this splinter group or something. Like we're gonna
or the say he's adopted by one or two specific Mandalorians, whether they're part of that team that saved them. If that person themselves says, that the Death Watch isn't for me, after seeing what happens during Darth Maul's time on the planet, and he's like, I'm stepping away, like I can't be a part of this anymore. He takes Din with him, then they start their own clan, they start their own sect or house, if you will.
I'm very lost in the amount of connections they managed to establish, and then also didn't answer what any of it means.
Kind of masterful, huh? Like
Right.
it leaves it such fertile ground when we know that going into the next season with certain casting news, we're like, okay, well then I guess we're gonna get some answers maybe for some of that. And
Okay.
again, I'm trying not to bury the lead for anything else you want to talk about. So,
Well, I guess maybe I've managed to avoid most of the casting spoilers. I've unfollowed all the
okay.
Twitters. I don't read the news. So, because I don't like that stuff. It happened to me a lot on Walking Dead, where like, this has been years now, but Sonequa Jones, who played a character on that show, was cast in another show. And they're like, look, she got cast as a regular on this other show. I guess she's the person that dies in this season finale.
yeah.
And I'm like, well, I guess even casting news isn't safe anymore, because you put that in the title of your little thing where you're like, this character dies, and it's a picture of her.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was already off that bandwagon of The Walking Dead, so but I feel you. I know what you mean. But then again, the hard part on that too is that even if you were only partially interested in the Walking Dead, you in particular were very much geared towards the show she was moving to. So it's like, well, yeah, I'm doubly spoiled because I know this and I know that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I don't know. How do you guys end up feeling about this type of spoiler, quote unquote spoiler, of like, here's casting news. I know one of them. Should we talk about the one that I know?
I only know of two, and
Okay.
the one that you know is probably one of the two that I know.
Ken, do you know of some?
I know of probably all of them.
Okay.
Because I've just been exposed. So
All right. So if you don't want to know stuff that has been spoiled for season 2 already about casting or whatever, or characters that may show up, tune out for let's say 5 minutes, because I only want to talk about the one that I know.
okay.
Okay.
Fair enough.
Boba Fett.
Tell us the one that you know. Okay.
Right?
Okay.
Boba Fett has the guy that plays Boba Fett, or Jango Fett, I guess,
Tamura Morrison. I am so excited for him to be in there.
will be coming back to play, we assume, Boba Fett. But if you are like me,
He could play Rex.
he could play Rex. Thank you. Thank you.
He could play any clone.
He could play a clone, and that was what I was hoping one of you would say. Because to me, that's the one I was upset when someone posted to me. I wasn't upset at the person, I want to be clear, because they didn't know. But the title was Boba Fett coming to season 2, and what you should have said was Tamura Morrison coming to season 2, because he could play any clone.
No?
There have been other. Did we talk about it last episode? That there have been other
Announcements?
No, there were things in the Mandalorian that have foreshadowed Boba Fett.
So this is, yes, I think we did talk about this before, but we should go through it again. There was the
So
scene.
there's the Spurs.
There's the Spurs on Tatooine for Ming-Na Wen's character, who is open-ended.
Right.
Clearly was left alive.
That and the musical cue from the special edition. So in the New Hope special edition, when he shows up in the hangar bay, they play a musical cue, and they use the same musical cue in that same scene.
Okay.
In the Mandalorian.
Okay.
As well.
So pretty clearly, Tamora it will be playing Boba Fett, right?
Well, the thing is too. I mean, it could be a flashback
herring?
too.
Red herring.
It could be a red herring, but it could also be a flashback. Like he could be. I mean, because hypothetically, he died at the end of Return of the Jedi, or not the end, but in the beginning of it. That he's like, oh, remember that time that you were talking to that one Mandalorian that wasn't quite a Mandalorian, and it's a flashback to Boba, pre Return of the Jedi.
So who's the character though that saves Ming-Na that is part of season 2, right?
Yeah, it very much could be him, but I'm just saying you don't necessarily need to. It's not set in stone that it's going to be him. They could also have him be. It could be Rex is who shows up, or it could be flashbacks.
So
the things are open.
It would be
it's
so
very much
awesome
the
if
same.
He plays Rex.
The same.
He could also do both. He could be.
Yeah.
He literally
Boba
could
Fett
just
in
be
one
on the
episode
show
and Rex in
as a
another
lot of
episode.
yes. He could just be on the show as a lot of people. Well, he can't be
If
fives.
it's a Filoni episode, he's gonna play Rex. I mean, like Filoni's gonna try and work in Ahsoka and Rex into every single thing that he does if he gets a chance. So
Right.
I'm kind of okay with that. That's
Okay, so that's I guess the other one that leaked out then is Rosario Dawson coming to the show.
yeah.
Oh, I guess I knew 3 people then. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Rosario
I had
Dawson
forgotten
coming
about
to the
that
show with which people are speculating other thing. Well, that one is unclear, right? Like, have they announced who she is playing?
I don't know if there's been. I'm like I looked at something recently that's a recent update, and it says that it's rumored, and I'm like I thought it was pretty hard confirmed, but then again, like unless the officially sanctioned Twitter for Star Wars says it, then I guess it's probably not.
Yeah. Has Lucasfilm confirmed any of them, or is it just like Hollywood Reporter on all of them?
I think it's kind of just like Hollywood Reporter. Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. The THR report. So yeah, the Hollywood Reporter report. So yeah.
Yeah, I don't think any of the new characters have been confirmed by like an official Lucasfilm source yet.
But then there's also like some of them that have been named are also like, oh, well, this person has had like tomorrow, like Mr. Morrison. I don't want to mess up his name. There's been another character that they announced, and I'm like, oh, well, that actor's had a role before. So you're like, are they playing that role? And so you're like, okay, well, do we take that at face value, or is it something like Jon Favreau, where it's like, oh, he played a role previously, but now he's playing a similar role, and it's because he's his own descendant in this role. Like, how does that work out?
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, he was the blue heavy Mando in Mandalorian, and in that he's another Vizsla. He's his own descendant.
That's just EU info, though, right? That's not in the show.
No, that's in the show.
Really?
Or it's confirmed that he's another Vizsla. I think it's by the credits or something. Okay. But he is confirmed to be playing from the same family, the same house.
I mean, that's in the credits, right? Like Filoni's pilot name is Trigger Wolf or something, like I don't know. Yeah, he put Vizsla down, but it's not something that's going to come back.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't want to speculate on that one because I mean, people are saying who she'll play, but we won't get into that one. I think
There's one other one that I thought that, but I guess we'll leave that for the show.
Okay, we'll leave that for the show. So
I don't want to bring any up.
Okay,
Yeah, that's fine.
We'll leave it there. That's been 5 minutes. People are coming back in. No more spoilers. Are there things that are not spoilers that you want to see for season 2? Or need to see or want explained?
I mean, the thing with most of the stuff as far as if people want to find them, the rumors and the close confirmations we've had are pretty much it. I kind of want to go into Mandalorian as clean as possible. It's just kind of like, let it wash over me. Let me enjoy the show as it comes.
How do you feel about it being more of you guys both? I mean, how do you feel of it being more of what we got in season 1? Like, I think a couple people I talked to were like, I really hope that baby goes away before season 2. I was like, wow. Okay, I don't hope that, but I'm just repeating what other people.
Not going away.
I know. The baby's never going away.
Person, by the way. I don't know what they think is going to happen, but there's no way. The way that baby, like, it was a hit with the non-Star Wars fans across this country, that baby's not going away anytime soon.
merchandising with the real money the movie is made.
Even if they had thought that even if Favreau was like, and then we're not gonna do anything to him. He's not gonna die or anything, but we're gonna write him off the show early on in season 2. Even if that had been the case, they would have been like, no. The Disney would have been like, no, you are absolutely not doing that. This
it's like what happened with Herzog, right? They said that they wrote him out in episode. No, Carl Weathers was originally going to be done by episode 3.
Yeah,
and then they liked him so much, they're like, no, you gotta stay, man.
Yeah,
I think the balancing act becomes between, like, let's look at Baby Groot. Like the end of Guardians 1, you've got baby little potted plant Groot. Then you have Baby Groot in number 2, and then you have kind of annoying teen Groot in Infinity War / Infinity War. And then so it's like you've got that weird, like that. I don't think anyone wants to see teenage Baby Yoda, where it's I'm just,
thank you.
Leave me alone, Din. I don't care. Like, no one wants. That's my Baby Yoda impression, everyone.
He's throwing his stereo across the room.
Yeah. And as much as Groot was, I enjoy Groot as a character, but in the Infinity War movie, he's not the most engaging. I'm not, who enjoys teenagers? I mean, really, anyone. Period. Let alone fictitious ones.
What's going to happen is that episode 1, that baby's going to have a new outfit so that they can sell a whole round of new Baby Yoda stuff.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I don't know if they even need to, considering the plethora of things that I still need to buy. Like, there's a Mafex one coming on the way that's going to have more articulation than the Black Series one. I just give me all the money. Just here it is. I'm
just saving. I'm not buying any Baby Yoda stuff. Well, my Katie already bought a backpack with Baby Yoda in it. I'm holding out.
Oh wait, well,
I'm holding out for those droid people to make the animatronic one, and then I'm gonna do that.
Okay,
that's all I'm doing. I think that for me, I would like season 2 to explain more about what happened to the Mandalorians, because it seems like we're just left in this limbo of yeah, they're cool. Okay, but explain why the lady with the hammer is still around, but the rest are all dead, and how they're connected to actually there's a lot left here, please.
Oh, sorry. Let me just interject. I really liked in the episode about the music that the name of the song for
Hammer Time
was Hammer Time, yeah, and that Favreau's like, is it really called Hammer Time? Okay. That was a great moment in that documentary.
I liked that whole episode about the music because it really underscores what I liked about Michael Giacchino's Rogue One soundtrack and less about what I liked about John Williams redoing his music for the other movies. Ludwig and Michael Giacchino nail an undertone of like, hey, horns and strings in soft moments and in exciting moments, and then also go out on a limb a little bit. He does it obviously much more so here with the like recorders and the like Western showdown music than they do in Rogue One. But there's definitely a lot of Rogue One that sounds very Star Wars and a lot of it that doesn't. And then a lot of this that sounds not Star Wars, but then they bring you back. And it's nice that it was close enough, but also that they really wanted to push it out there.
It's funny that you mentioned those two soundtracks because it might have been because it was the first non-John Williams, and I'm not counting Clone Wars, the movie, but like theatrical release, live action movie. It's not that I didn't like the Rogue One, and I loved the Rogue One movie, but I felt like the music was very unmemorable, and I had a lot harder time connecting to that soundtrack than I did any of the other. Even the like Solo wasn't John Williams either, but and part of that was because that music was borrowed much more heavily from John Williams.
I guess maybe that's why I forget that Solo wasn't John Williams, is because it borrows so hard that it's not its own thing. But
I had none of that problem with The Mandalorian, and I loved The Mandalorian music. I thought that his like recorder theme that they talked about in that episode was just terrific, and I really liked just a lot of points during that. I loved how in the episode where they're on the prison ship, they're trying to get the one guy out.
Oh man, so good.
And it was like, because they shot that movie, the second half of that episode, they shot it like a horror movie with the Mandalorian being the bad guy.
So good. And it's so good.
It sounded like a John Carpenter like one guy on a synthesizer.
Yep.
John Carpenter 80s horror movie.
It really did.
Music.
It did.
Yeah. I thought that the music for Mandalorian was really terrific.
That was Rick Famuyiwa. I'm trying, man.
Yeah.
That was his episode, and like apparently people, did you catch that when he was talking about it in the first episode of this? People at Disney were like, "Well, that was interesting."
Yeah.
And for me, it's one of the ones
I love that episode.
I love it. Yeah. Like to me, the ones that aren't as good might be, although they have really the best scene where he's drinking the baby Yoda's drinking the tea. The Seven Samurai one is kind of like, I mean, that was all right. But when you get off the beaten path with the Mandalorian and you let his character be this like quirky, I mean, this like he gets beat up.
Yeah.
Almost every episode, all the way up until the prison ship. And then on the prison ship, when Bill Barr is like, "Aren't you some sort of cool guy?" And he finally shows it off when it's like, "Oh, this whole ship's full of droids."
Yeah.
You know, that was cool. I'm definitely going to watch Mandalorian season 1 again now that I've watched this, looking for things that they talked about, but also looking for things like, can I see how they shot around volume? Can I see, like, what did I miss about story-wise stuff? I didn't really plan to rewatch it as much as I liked it, and now I definitely will. But anyway.
Oh, I also had one other thing.
Go ahead.
I had one other thing one other music related thing.
Oh,
so,
I love music.
Me personally, I thought that The Force Awakens music was great, and I loved that soundtrack from the very beginning. And then I felt like The Last Jedi seemed like it was an awful lot of rehashed themes from the the previous 7 movies. And the reason why I'm bringing this up, Andy, is because you don't watch the special features. In the Last Jedi special features, they talk about how differently Rian Johnson did the scoring. So when you score a movie, the director works with the composer, and they, like they send him a rough cut of the movie and then say, like, this is kind of what I'm looking for in this part, and this is kind of the music, like I want this to be dramatic, and I want this to be really, really sad, and that kind of stuff. And then the composer comes up with something, and they go back and forth and figure out, get something that the director wants. So that's how it normally works. With Rian Johnson, his brother almost always does his music, or always does his music in his other movies, and so he had his brother put together a soundtrack for the movie using existing John Williams music and send it to John Williams and say, here, record this, which is why that soundtrack sounded, and like I didn't know that at the time, but I remember listening to that soundtrack and thinking, like, well, this is just Kylo's theme from the last movie. This is just Rey's theme from the last movie. There's like the spark, and that's the only new song on that soundtrack, and then the rest of it was like, well, this is this music and stuff. And then when I watched that special feature on the Last Jedi, and then I was like, oh, that makes so much sense why this one soundtrack sounded different than all of the other John Williams soundtracks, when he normally comes up with so much more new music in his movies.
I really feel like that's kind of disrespectful to John Williams.
Yeah, I kind of felt that way too. But it explained a lot about it. It made sense when I watched that, and I was like, oh, okay, that makes total sense.
It confirms a lot of my theories about Rian Johnson, for sure.
His brother.
But we don't need to get into that today. Because I still want to know what your guys' thoughts are on the upcoming wave of Comic-Con toys.
It's the Comic-Con stuff, not the other stuff that's dropped in between then and Comic-Con releases and so forth.
I mean, I know that you're holding back opinions on lots of different stuff. Let's just call it all the wave, the post-summer wave.
So, I mean, I'll start off with the Clone Wars era Ahsoka Tano being released, which is mostly parts of reuse, but a new Ahsoka Tano with her blue lightsabers for when she fights Maul. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Oh,
yeah. But there's that. There's also 2 clone troopers that have the helms from the Clone Wars that are coming out. I'm sorry, there's just one, but
you got some of those?
I have not yet. I'm still sort of on the fence. I really want to, because I really like that
they're 501st,
we're talking about
right?
We're talking about the helmet design where they paint their helmets to look like Ahsoka's face markings, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. They're 501st.
I really
right?
like that. Yeah. Yes. The 501st with the Ahsoka face markings on their helmet. I really like that. Although, like, I've pretty much, I just need to stop buying 6-inch. Like, I need Kit Vista to be my last 6-inch figure, because I need to draw the line. So I'm fighting it. I might get 1 or 2. I might end up getting her and like 2 of them. I don't know. I want to. Because they look really cool, but
I feel you, man. And
then they also did 2 Mandalorians in the pack as well. One is a Mandalorian loyalist, and then I almost want to say Death Watch, but I think they have a different title because they're part of Maul's faction
it's
of
like a Maul
Mandalorians.
trooper or something like that.
Yeah,
anyway.
He even has the horns on the helmet too.
Were they okay? So
that was
I
in the
actually,
episode.
Yeah.
In Solo, the criminal organization is Crimson Dawn. Is that what they're called?
It's called
on-
Black Sun.
Black Sun.
No. In Solo, they call him Crimson Dawn.
They're run by Black Sun.
In the movie Solo.
Yeah, they're part of the Shadow Collective, which is Black Sun.
But
Okay.
there is
So
also
I think that okay. So in Clone Wars, he takes over Black Sun.
Yes, which
Right?
is part of the
Okay.
five syndicates.
But in Solo, they call his thing Crimson Dawn.
right.
No, so they're the five
is-
syndicates. I know this one because I looked it up. There's the,
Okay.
there's
Are his Mandalorians Crimson Dawn, or is it just the criminal organization that's Crimson Dawn?
the criminal organization is Crimson Dawn.
Okay.
He takes over Black Sun, and then Crimson Dawn, Hutts, Pikes, and I'm gonna have to look the last one up. Cremora are the five syndicates from that thing,
Okay.
and those are part of the Shadow Collective, I think is what he calls it.
Okay. Because the Crimson Dawn thing, because he is red, his face is red, and there's Concord Dawn, which is is it a moon? I think it's a moon of Mandalore. So I always thought that maybe the red Mandalorians were Crimson Dawn, and then after all of this, they just became the criminal organization.
I think
Like,
what
he
he
just
ends
used
up
the same name or
doing, I'm
other
pretty
people.
sure what they imply that he ends up doing is that he takes over like most of the five syndicates. And
Right.
runs them.
Yeah. I was just saying from when I heard it in Solo, I thought maybe that was the name of the Mandalorians that join him, that paint their helmets red and put the horns on them
Ah, gotcha.
on Mandalore. So
Got it.
I'm having the darkest time trying to. I think maybe okay. So there is a Super Commando. I think that's him. So the Super Commando action figure is the one with the Maul spikes on his helmet and everything. So I don't know if that's the name of that faction. It does. And I'm looking through the description. It just says Maul's Mandalorians. So
okay.
Anyway,
Well, they should be called Crimson Dawn. I mean,
it would
yeah,
make
I
more
think.
sense.
yep. Doesn't he understand branding? Like, get it together.
Yeah.
You're red. You've got these guys. They're the new Dawn. Get it together, guys. Like.
Nice.
So yeah, that's another one that came out, and that was just before Comic-Con, and then at Comic-Con we started to get stuff. Well, here's the weird thing: they were more announced and confirmed, but they won't be available until September to order.
Which is right around the
essentially-
corner.
Yeah. Well, essentially what it was is with COVID and everything shutting down and distribution not being what it could and should be, they got delayed. And that's the quickest answer you're going to find is that they weren't going to be available in time. So they didn't want to try and put them all up and have it fail. Also, Walmarts and Targets have had a really bad going of putting things up for pre-order
Oh,
and having
man.
them.
I don't even
like,
get me
being-
started.
Yeah.
I want that
Getting-
silver Mandalorian. Good luck.
Oh,
know-
the wait, which
The Beskar armor.
The Beskar Mandalorian.
Oh
versus
yeah.
the-
Oh yeah. Yeah, he was another one that was put up around that time.
Yep.
Yeah.
Was the all Beskar one.
All
Yeah.
Beskar Mandalorian, where they redid the paint job, I guess, or whatever,
Yeah.
to give it the shinies.
Mm-hmm. But
Anyway.
one of the ones they
you want a
announced for
Wampa?
Comic-Con. Yeah, Wampa's all. If you want a Wampa, if you missed him when his first release, he's coming out.
The only one I know is Ewoks.
Yeah, the Ewok is part of the Heroes of Endor pack, which is a speeder bike. It is a unique Ewok, as well as a Han, Luke, and Leia. A lot of them are like the Luke and Han are both reuse, but they also come with cloaks and helmets, like cloth goods cloaks, which are actually kind of awesome. Leia comes with one as well, but she's actually a fair amount of new parts, so that's cool. And
then
it's a pretty cool little pack.
The most important one for Kit: Vintage Collection Clone Wars 501st ARC Troopers 3-pack.
Yes,
Yes.
if
That-
that's your jam.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a great 3-pack. I wish that they wouldn't. I feel like the 3-packs, not this one in particular, just in general, are sort of overpriced. I wish that they would keep them at. I kind of feel like since it's a 3-pack, it should be like a slight discount over if you were buying 3 individual figures, but they actually go the other way and mark them up. But yeah, that's a great pack to get right there.
R.I.P. R.I.P. to all the dudes in this pack.
Did you end up getting the Luke 3-pack from last year?
No.
Okay. It was pretty like the vintage line for last year was pretty readily available after the fact on their website. So this is one, if you're a vintage collector, since there's not as many people out there due to the Black Series being the main focus, this is definitely an opportunity to kind of you have a better chance of getting this than you do, say, the Heroes of Endor.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, at least for if you're comparing it to last year's, like last year, I think was the Sith Trooper and God, what was last year's Star Wars one? I know there's a Sith Trooper because it came with like a load of new of accessories, even though it was re-released. They usually re-release all those figures anyways. But the Star Wars, the 3-pack of Luke of like from each different movie of the prequel of the original trilogy was readily available for a good long while after. And at the show, they didn't sell out of that one.
Yeah. Well, I think that the Luke 3-pack might have all been repacks anyways.
Yeah.
I mean, even before, and I think that they were all repacks or at least remakes, like updates to previously made figures. And then they were all going to come out single carded afterwards. Whereas these are, I don't think we've ever had these 3 clones.
No way.
Vintage collection. No. I don't think we've ever had these 3 clones. So.
Well, yeah, not these 3 clones. And also it's just a matter of different paint jobs, especially because the clones, like, okay, it's a lot of the reuse for the parts, but there's like, okay, now they're getting different paint jobs. And that's pretty standard for Hasbro. There's like,
well, right. But like, for me personally, I understand that these are just repainted. It's the same mold and they're just repainted clones, but these are technically new characters that we haven't gotten before. Whereas the Lukes, if they update the face to make it look, maybe a little bit better on a Dagobah Luke, I'm probably not going to get that for that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it's still just Dagobah Luke.
You'd only grab it for the new card, right?
Probably not even then, because I open them and it'd have to be quite a card. I mean, the only stuff that I keep that I don't open is I always get 2 of the Kit Fisto stuff, and then I keep one of them carded.
So you open everything, huh?
Yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah. Toys are meant to be played with. That's what Toy Story 2 told us.
Exactly.
And then, so one of the things that I wanted to talk about, because we talked about it before, we really got into it about the carbon freezing chamber when that went up. That was an option,
didn't we?
And we were like, this feels so kind of empty. It's just kind of like, for $50, you're getting a carded figure and some plastic, but it's not a lot of even plastic. It's just kind of like, here are these plates. If you buy 2, if you spend $100, you get 2 of them and make one whole playset thing. Yeah. And that's kind of cool. And we had even talked about, well, what if they did something like they put cardboard in there to kind of fill in that lower half? What if they did something to make it feel like you got more out of it, even without adding more plastic?
Right. And we were like, oh, you said they won't make you cut up the box.
Right. Yeah. And it's like, because it's back in the day, we talked about the Powers of the Force collection, or was it Powers of the Jedi at that time? Maybe. They had done some cardboard stuff with the packaging. And I'm like, they could do that if they put the time into it. In this year's release for the Transformers box set, they are doing, if anyone's familiar with the Transformers animated movie, there's a scene where they face a robotic judge and executioner and so on and so forth, and they drop people into a pit.
That sounds horrible.
Box set, yeah. In this box set, they recreated the judge's chamber and the pit, and they did all that. And again, If you'd like to check out We Were Gamers on Instagram, you'll see pictures of this. We'll get those up.
Yeah, I'll put all
But
the
part of it,
pictures up in one big. You just click on one, and I'll have all these pictures from the thread.
yeah, swipe right on it.
Yep.
And so in this box set, they have all of it there, but it's like they did just what we talked about. They print it's if you buy this box set, you can pretty much just pull it out of the box, set it on your shelf, and you have a full display set up. The majority of it's just cardboard and your 5 figures. And that's something that I thought was like, okay, well, they just showed exactly what they could do, and they're not doing it with that other box set that's going to be much less plastic. Like this feels like for $10, or actually this is $20 difference, but still, it's like I would like this type of creative thought put into it, and like they could be like, okay, well, here's all of the underlying wires and stuff to go in there, and all the different display features, but. I mean, we didn't get that with that, and I hope there's some thought put in that into the future.
Yeah, with that carbon free set, I feel like they did a really good job with what they put in there, but it just feels part of it's the peg legs to keep it up high enough so that you can have the I don't know, cylinder or whatever that you lower Han down into and bring him out of, but. I mean, it looks like a dock, like, you know, for a boat, and with like posts into the ground, and I really feel like it needed, and especially like that weird wire cage that's at the other end from the platform above the freezing
Why
part.
doesn't that have something you can put into it?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it feels. Well, I don't even know why that thing's even there. Like, why even put on that wire stuff? Like, I mean. If it was in Empire, I never noticed that there was like weird pipes and like wires and stuff around that part of the thing. Yeah, but like, why would you even put that in? I don't. I mean, I don't think that it would detract any more from the set if that like weird spider web kind of metal bars weren't there. But I would absolutely prefer if they had some kind of backdrop or something. I don't know. It seems. The way that this ended up coming out, the floor and the stairs look great, but it feels like a weird set the way that it ended up.
Yeah. And so like I just wanted to focus on like creative packaging can be there if they take the time and think about it and be like, okay, let's make this feel a little more full, and just put some cardboard in there and pack it in, and you could easily make that piece feel a lot more. One, you're going to add more detail to it because you're going to see all the wires and the paneling and the greebling and all that stuff in there. Like, it doesn't have to be texture.
What was that word you just used?
Greebling?
Yeah.
It's usually used. So when you're doing kit bashing in models, all those the textures and the paneling, that's all greebling.
By kit bashing, you mean putting two kits together?
Yeah. I mean, two model kits. Yeah. Sorry for just speaking in nerd terms.
He's speaking in tongues.
Well, yeah, it's also, but not everyone knows what doing a kit bash is, so it's definitely a fair point to go into that depth. But like Lego sets can have greebling. Like on the X-wing, there's all these little details that are added in by all that additional texture as you add little pieces here and there.
Right.
And so, like, I want that visual texture to be there, to see, like, looking at the Transformers set, I'm like, oh, like that's exactly what I would have needed, and it looks great. Just fold that up around the bottom, and I feel like it's a fuller set. I feel like I'm getting more for my money, even if it's just cardboard, and it's included. And now I'm like, I wish they would have had that thought. I know it's different teams for different lines, so it is what it is, but it just kind of, I don't know, it leaves me wanting more.
I think one of Kit's points, and one that I still hold true, is looking at this, I really, really feel like they think most people are going to leave it in the box.
No. I mean, oh God, I can't even imagine that, especially for something like this. Like, this is made, to me, this sits, I mean, it's not the same dimensions as a Detolf, but as far as like some of the, like, I look at that, I'm like, that's probably as wide as a Billy bookcase, and you just set that in there and just start standing your figures up on top of it. Like,
yeah, you could put a lot of figures on it. All your Empire figures could fit on half of this thing.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And so that's, I don't know. I want a little bit more for my money, and I think that some cardboard is not a lot to ask.
How do you, so with all these releases, I noticed we were talking in the group chat about how badly they were getting released at like Walmart at 1 a.m. I hope you got your Ahsoka Tano. Like, right? Like,
Yeah.
Or, 5 p.m, Target put up the Mandalorian Beskar. Good luck. Sorry if you weren't running a bot.
Yeah. And
should everything just go to Hasbro Pulse or something? Like, what is the thing that should be done in 2020 to make toy buying for collectors better?
Well, one thing to remember is a lot of these releases, as far as the Walmart and the Targets, these are the pre-orders that are selling out. They're not necessarily the entire run. And so you can still, in a month or two, head into a Target and hopefully, I say hopefully, find them on the shelf. We also forgot to mention, they also released a Rex droid from, if depending on how old you are, he's originally from Star Tours, but then he moved into a cantina in Batu/Galaxy's Edge. They released a toy of him. Originally, it was available in the parks, but then he ended up popping up. In this single pack now, and also Cardinal, which is another new EU character. But you hypothetically, you could still walk into a Target and find these after the release. Whereas there are other ones that are not. Like there was a Transformers DeLorean crossover, and there's definitely needs to be some type of control mechanism on Walmart or Target. The problem is they're never going to hinder people from selling them out. They don't care. They don't care about toy collectors. They don't care about even Toys R Us, who was that was their focus was toys. They didn't care. Their website was garbage. And so you do have things like Pulse, where if you sign into Pulse right now, yeah, it has a little Capterra thing of like, I'm not a bot, but at least it has that. At least there's some type of, how do we slow down these sellouts to like people who are just running systems to try and get past everything. The answer is to try to put up some barriers, but Walmart's never going to do it. They don't care. Target's not going to do it. They don't care.
Yeah. I wonder.
They could stop doing exclusives.
They should. Yeah. Well, first of all, exclusives are bad. If they're going to be exclusive, make them exclusive to your store only, Yeah.
And it's like, I do like that Hasbro's also doing a thing called like shared exclusive. So you have ones that are like, oh, they're exclusive to Hasbro Pulse and to Amazon, or, this location and this location. So it's like, okay, you're giving additional avenues to make them available.
Yeah, that would be better.
Yeah.
I think
so.
I don't know. I think that Amazon tried to do this a couple times where it was like it's Prime only. If you had Prime, you got a pre-window for buying that type of stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if that's the way either.
Yeah, I mean, I would hope that they do something, and it's interesting because some toy manufacturers like NECA have heard these complaints, and they've made statements about it, saying like, we're working on it. We're going to try and make it better so that you can get the toys you want, even if it's from us, or they've even said like, don't buy from scalpers. Like, know that we are going to do our best to get additional runs made so that these will be available. And so,
I mean, we gave people on the main pod the same advice about Ring Fit. Don't buy Ring Fit for $200. It will be back in stock when the scalpers stop buying them up. Just wait. Yeah. And now they're out for under MSRP on Amazon right now.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing too, is like, even for like Marvel Legends will have Target exclusive ones, and you'll see them eventually go to clearance because it's like, yeah, at one point they were hot, but then, the demand got met up with the supply, and they're like, oh, okay, no, but people didn't really desperately need this. And now here they are for, $7. It's like, this is a $30 figure. Now you got it for $7 when you spent, $100 because you had to have it right away.
Correction on Ring Fit. It is now sold out again.
Yeah. I saw the best I got. Yeah, it'll be back.
It was sold out.
Don't give your money to scalpers.
I mean, it's sold out again because they put it on sale this morning.
Did you get one?
I have one, actually. Yeah, I bought it at MSRP.
Nice.
I just waited. I hurt my triceps playing that game.
Ooh, okay.
They don't tell you like to stretch. You should stretch. That's all I have to say.
Great. Now we're going to get one more warning on a Ring Fit now. That's,
The warning should be
don't eat this, and you got to stretch first.
the warning should be you're playing Ring Fit. You're probably a middle-aged dad who's ridiculously out of shape. Make sure to start on novice. Okay.
And he's like, screw warm up. I'm a man.
Who needs to warm up? I'm already warm. It's 80 degrees out. Well, I like hearing you guys talk about toys because I'm not as currently invested in them. I want to do a toy episode where we talk about what we've got though. So maybe that's coming up in a month or two.
It could also be a video. We could also put something up on the We Were Gamers YouTube and be like, hey, this is a little bit of a this is our toy room. This is some of the stuff that I've collected over the years. This is my favorite thing. This is,
if you guys
a pile
are
of wasted money,
shy,
but,
maybe
hey.
we'll do it. Yeah.
Also, if you're still listening to us and you have not watched and you don't know what a kit bash is, and that means you have not watched The Toys That Made Us on Netflix, go watch that right now.
Watch the last episode.
What?
That's a throwback to earlier when we were telling people to watch the last episodes of things.
No. Go watch the first episode of The Toys That Made Us, which is about Star Wars toys, and the whole series is great.
Yeah, the first one's the best one though.
Yeah, but the one about Star Wars, definitely. And for the 6-inch Endor set, the Ewok that they are putting in there is Papaloo.
Okay.
Oh.
I felt like there was more, like you're going to go into more on who Papaloo is.
Yeah.
And that the inflection there was like,
from
Papaloo,
that's
my favorite.
clearly a 6-inch version of the Ewok that was named Papaloo in the old Kenner of the old Ewoks. It's Papaloo.
Oh.
He's even got the same staff.
The one
Nice.
with the ribbons on his head or whatever they are. Feathers or
Yeah,
Well,
feathers.
I'm pretty sure that in Return of the Jedi, he's the one who, when they go to the back door of the bunker, he steals the speeder bike, and
Runs it off.
6 of the 7 guys chase him. Yeah.
the hero
So it makes
of
sense
Endor.
that he comes with the speeder bike.
Got it.
Which
But not the hero to nab.
yeah.
Oh. Nice. Toys That Made Us, a good recommendation. If you have stuff you want us to chat about, stuff that we messed up, stuff about Mandalorians, that is canon that we don't. Because at this point, you could tell us all sorts of stuff that doesn't matter anymore.
But don't tell us spoilers about Mandalorian 2.
Oh, yeah,
Please
don't do that. No spoilers of Mandalorian 2. Podcast at weweregamers.com is a good place to reach out to all those things. Kit and I can read those there. Ken, you should plug your thing.
Yeah, thank you. So I just recently started up my own, essentially podcast entertainment thing. My first run was a live stream about Marvel trading cards, specifically Marvel Series 3 from 1992. I did my first episode with the artist Ranthony Height and good friend Victor Segura. I've actually this is an exclusive for the first people for here. My next episode will be August 14th with Victor Segura and hopefully an as yet to be named artist. And we'll be covering another run of cards and just kind of diving into what we enjoyed about that era of comic collecting. And then at some point in the future, I'll also have a date set for the 21st. And then from there, I'll be bringing on additional guests, much like Andy Thompson and hopefully Kit Kurtasawa. And we'll have more people on and you can just talk about cards.
Are you going to talk about Star Wars comics?
I've thought about talking about Star Wars trading cards. The comics will be in the direct podcast. This is the live stream, which is at twitch.tv/comic banter. You can also find me at Comic Banter on Instagram for more following. It'll be for the most part.
The trading card game from Star Wars?
We can talk about the trading card game, but there's not a lot of art with that as far as I remember.
No, it's not like art.
Yeah, it's more shot stills from the movie and stuff. So that's where right now I'm kind of focusing on card art. Like there is a couple different Star Wars card series that are geared towards the EU, and they cover a wide variety of artists doing different things from the EU. And I do plan on doing that, but it's a more expensive set, so I have to get a hold of it, do scans of it to be able to talk about them more in depth. But Star Wars Galaxy series card set is on my to-do list.
Oh, I have those somewhere.
See, right now we can start setting those dates now and talk about Galaxy Series 1 through 6, I believe.
I don't have a lot of them. I just
Okay.
have some of them.
Yeah,
I use them as
There's a lot of-
bookmarks.
I did that with some of my cards, but now I'm going back and buying some of the ones that I missed out on and filling in those
How
gaps.
do you
and-
have space for all this stuff, man?
I don't. When we had to move stuff for cleaning the floors. It was a little bit of a nightmare. There's toys and stuff everywhere.
Toys are bad. Cards are actually pretty easy to store. They don't.
that's fair.
You can fit a lot of, because they have boxes and they stack well, and cards are pretty easy to store. Toys are a nightmare.
Yeah.
Well,
They're
more on
big and
cards on comic
Not
banter
all
is
uniform
next.
sized.
Yeah. So yeah, check out at Comic Banter, all one word, on several different social medias. You're likely to find it. I've got the Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all for Comic Banter, as well as Twitch. So look for us on social media, and you'll find us and be led to the podcast or the live stream on August 14th and 21st,
Nice.
19 or 2020.
All the carbon scoring stuff we've done so far is on YouTube and on our website, BelieverGamers.com.
I have so much to talk about with the Phantom Menace music, regardless of what you think about the movie. And
I'm gonna blow your
Andy-
mind right now. I'm gonna blow your mind.
is it your favorite soundtrack too?
I love that soundtrack.
Okay.
I have
Good.
listened to the Phantom Menace soundtrack so many times for such a shitty movie. It doesn't make sense.
But the soundtrack is great.
It's
There's
so
much,
good.
There's so many
It
little things, like how Anakin's theme
is
goes
so good.
goes into Vader or into the Imperial March.
Yep.
And yeah, there's so many little things. It's so great.
I remember
And
when I requested this song.
In one
a
movie,
lot.
he tells you that the droid army, it will eventually be the Imperial army. Like, just
Yeah.
with music.
And the song that they play at the end when they're having the parade is the Emperor's
Yep.
music from
Yep.
Return of the Jedi. It's just
Mhm.
sped up and sung by
Yep.
kids.
Oh my god, it's so good.
Yeah.
Are you going to talk about it being requested on TRL? And they were like, all right, here we go for the 10th time this week. Duel the Fates on TRL.
So good.
Andy, do you listen to David Collins' Star Wars music stuff?
No, what is that?
He's like a person who actually, so I don't know anything about music or music composition or anything like that, but he's like an actual composer, I think, who knows about this and loves Star Wars music. And he goes through, he's on
The Sound of Star Wars.
Yeah.
David Collins.
And he has the great stuff to say, many hours of stuff to say about Star Wars music. And he has a lot. I highly recommend his podcast as well.
Okay. Yeah, it is one of the most disconnected things, I think, in film history of how good the music is. Because I will stand by the theory that if you get a good composer and good music, you can make a movie that would kind of suck be actually pretty good.
I
that's one
agree
of the
that music
reasons
is very important. Yeah.
The Last Samurai with Tom Cruise.
Tom Hanks.
Tom Hanks' Last Samurai. I don't have a good Tom Hanks impression, but I have a really funny picture of him in a samurai suit jumping on a piano.
You're welcome.
That movie is good, but not great until Hans Zimmer nails some of the moments in that movie?
I don't remember the music particularly, but I do like a lot of Hans Zimmer's stuff. I listen to Gladiator all the time because I love, and he did the music for that.
Yeah, pretty good.
Although it's funny because like I feel like there's a lot of points when I listen to that then remind me of later stuff that he did for Pirates of the Caribbean. Just like little bits here and there of his music, and I'm like, if he wasn't doing both of those soundtracks, he'd probably get sued.
Oh, probably. Yeah. I don't know. I think his real late like I think he got better as he got older. Like that Interstellar soundtrack is really good. Although you have to listen to it on a good stereo cuz there's some stuff down there that's very low in the bass range
Oh yeah,
and doesn't pick up even on my car stereo sometimes. It just sounds like there's nothing playing.
yeah. I like listening to. There are a couple songs on the Man of Steel soundtrack that are like really heavy with drums that I love listening to in my car.
Scare people.
No, I mean it's just like I mean
Man of Steel.
calling it. Well, I like percussion heavy stuff like taiko drums. Like the kind of drumming that he's doing is not taiko, but
so,
like that
the
it's
entire
sort of that
Battlestar
same sort of
Galactica
thing. Like if there
soundtrack?
is,
Yeah, I said so.
Yeah,
You love the
right,
entire
yeah.
Battlestar Galactica soundtrack.
yeah, except I think those actually were taiko drums.
They are
or
taiko
very
drums. That's what
similar.
I'm saying.
Yeah,
You
but I mean like I think he's just using like regular, like symphony or drums.
uh,
I don't really know that much about drums, but I do like really percussion heavy stuff, and some of that music for the Man of Steel. If I don't even remember if there was other accompanying music with it, like if there was an orchestra playing behind them and it's just way in the background or not. But like there's a lot of really cool drum stuff in that soundtrack.
do you see how much trouble you're in, Kent?
Oh yeah. But you guys enjoying yourselves, so that's good.
I'm just saying, we're gonna have to do this about Star Wars music.
No, it's good.
Well, I'm glad that you agree that Phantom Menace is a great soundtrack, even if, because there's a lot of negativity about that movie, but I feel like that soundtrack is probably John, and this is saying a lot because John Williams has had a very storied, legendary career. I think that that's probably his peak.
The Phantom Menace?
Yeah. Just because of what he was able to do, and it's not even like I feel like if you listen to that soundtrack by itself, like if you don't know anything else about any of the other stuff in Star Wars and you listen to that soundtrack, you'd probably think it was pretty good. But like with the knowledge of the 3 movies that came before it and the 2 movies coming after it, and when you can listen to all 6 of them and be like, he's able to tie Return of the Jedi to Phantom Menace. I mean, to Revenge of the Sith, and here's like he starts musical stories, like you were saying with the clones, the battle droids and the clones and the stormtroopers, their music. Like he starts stuff in Phantom Menace that then he starts stories in the Phantom Menace that then go through the next 3 movies, and I just think it's brilliant.
For me, the Imperial March sometimes doesn't even start the way that it starts in like episode 4. In my head, I can do a through line of that first beat of when the droids activate in the Gungan battle. You can in your head hear all the way through that through line of how that music works.
Yeah, it's absolutely. He's just brilliant. I mean, I can't. It's not like that hasn't been said forever, but I mean, like, yeah. I think that's. He did such a good job with that soundtrack.
Maybe it just stands out because that movie's not great.
It's got its moments.
It does. All right.